American Pinball announces Legends of Valhalla. Chicago Gaming reveals Cactus Canyon remake. Stern releases Jurassic Park pin and Elvira 40th Anniversary Edition. Interview with the Scorbit team.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Joosten. I'm the editor of Pinball Magazine. And I'm joined today with...
I'm Martin Ayub, and I'm the editor of Pinball News, and we are here to look back at all the excitement that took place in the pinball world in October 2021. And although we say it every month that it's been an exciting month,
but this time
I think
we got a very exciting month to discuss. Oh yeah, absolutely, lots of things going on. A couple of
new games, new
games,
new
Pinball Expo happening,
new systems. It's really packed. So really, we should just get on with it. Really, shouldn't we? So rather than just waste any more time, because I think it's going to be quite a long one, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, we pre-recorded the interview with the Scorbit team, which is an hour and 23 minutes. So we're saving that to the end of this podcast, because if you're not that interested in that, then it's easier to just skip at that point, but still having heard everything else, instead of skipping through the podcast trying to find the end of the interview. So,
although I would say that even if you're not interested in it now, give it a listen, because it might be something that wins you over and introduces you to a whole new way to play games. But anyway, we'll come to that a bit later.
It's definitely exciting. I'll give you that. So by all means, give it a chance. But we'll save that for we'll save that as the last segment of this this episode.
Sounds like a plan.
And we might be doing a live interview as well, which is something that we haven't done before. So bear with me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So, but let's start off with our headlines then. And the first one of those was from American Pinball, and we've been waiting for the announcement of their fourth game.
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
For quite some time, and although I think we even mentioned what we thought it was before.
Yeah, I think
it would actually come
public
as a
secret,
surprise.
so to speak.
Yeah, that's right. So yes, so they did officially a launch, Legends of Valhalla, which has been produced by Scott Gullix and Frank Gigliotti of Riot Pinball.
Right, who you might know from Wrath of Olympus from a couple of years ago. Absolutely,
the game, or Wooly as it was as otherwise known, which they sold a certain number of, but it didn't take enough orders in order to take it into full production.
Yeah, I think
so. Scott moved on.
At some point, Spooky was interested if there was enough demand, and that didn't seem to be there. And I think it was a highly costly game, a wide body with lots of.
You're right. There's a lot of playfield mechanisms and devices and things on there.
But it was a very impressive game. Absolutely,
it was.
Yeah. So good for Scott and Frank that they landed Legends of Valhalla with American Pinball. I believe they produced 5 prototypes themselves before American Pinball picked the title up and took it into production. So. Congratulations to Scott and Frank for getting a deal with American Pinball. And from what I understood from the Pinball Expo seminar of American Pinball, it's not a one and done deal, as they mentioned it.
No.
So we might see more from Riot Pinball in collaboration with American Pinball.
I think it's also worth saying that it wasn't just a case that sort of Scott and Frank produced the game and delivered it to American and they built it. The game was actually much further developed by American Pinball. So the whole team there worked on it, made it something which could be mass produced. They developed the software further, changed some of the playfield features, did a whole new music track to it and voice calls as well.
Yeah,
the music is I think there's something like 22 tracks from the group 2 Steps from Hell.
Yeah,
which who I thought, now remind me whether this is, you might remember better than I do. Didn't they do the music for Jersey Jack Pinball's sort of intro?
Oh, that could be. I might have to look at for that leader. I'm not sure whether that was them, but
yeah, I think it was. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I think that's the case. But anyway, one of the key things that when the game was announced that Dave Fix told us before in an interview is that when the game is announced, he wanted the game
publicly say it. We knew up front why he was delaying the announcement of the game, because that would happen. The game was ready to go. He could announce it any minute, but he wanted to wait until games were ready to be played at locations, preferably in the US and in Europe and Australia as well. Obviously, there's heavy delays in transport overseas of games, so Europe and Australia didn't work out, but he did get games on the day of the announcement available at public locations in America. Several arcades across the country had the game set up so people could play it right away, which I think
is rather unusual because the announcement was actually made on a Saturday, which it's not a normal business day, but that's the day when the game was available to play at a number of arcades. I think there was about 8. And then from the following Monday, it was available at another bunch of locations as well. So you didn't have to, if you couldn't play it at the weekend, then you could play it on the Monday.
Yeah, and that was the Monday before Pinball Expo.
Yes, indeed. I don't think we said it, but it's been taken into production now with a limited edition version, of which there will be 500 units produced.
Yeah, originally that was 300, but the demand was so high that they expanded it to 500, if that's the correct expression now. So it's 500 units now. I'm not sure whether they might increase that number again. So far, the standard edition has not been announced yet, so it looks like they're trying to mostly sell limited edition games, which I can understand, of course. But if it's a limited edition game, that doesn't mean you can keep on increasing the production number.
No, that's right, and there's no guarantee that they will actually ever produce a standard edition, but the intention is there if they think the demand is sufficient.
Right. So, but if you're interested in a Viking-themed pinball machine, there's not that many around. Of course, there was a Bally Viking in the early 80s.
That's true.
Probably one of the few that I can think of, or the only one actually. So, but it's interesting. Jack Danger already hosted a gameplay stream, which also saw the introduction of a new American Pinball team member, so to speak. Stephen Bowden, who has worked at Deeproot Pinball, has now joined American Pinball.
Yes, if you ever thought there was any doubt that everybody was fleeing from Deeproot and trying to get work elsewhere, well, here's proof. Yes, Steve's joined them as corporate account manager and creative and marketing consultant, which is a fairly wide brief, I'd have thought. But no, as we know at Deeproot, he was responsible for rule and storyline development on games there. But we'll have some more Deeproot news later. But good to see Steve landing on his feet and ending up at American, where he can no doubt further enhance their game development.
Right. So, and finishing off with Legend of Valhalla, or getting back to that, Scott and Frank from Riot Pinball did a great interview with Pinball Profile Jeff Theodis, which is highly recommended. So, if you want to hear more about the development of the game and how the integration went with American Pinball and so on, then by all means, check out one of the most recent Pinball Profile episodes.
Episode 320, if you're on the website, pinballprofile.com.
Thanks. Yes. And then last but certainly not least, Pinball Expo is definitely going to be mentioned more in this.
I think so.
In this episode, but American Pinball did have an interesting announcement at the show at the end of their seminar. David Fix basically announced the American Pinball American Dream contest. Which is basically an open invitation to the homebrew community to create a new game, bring it to Expo next year, and they will look and find a way to have the audience put in votes for what they think is the best game, and the American Pinball team will also be voting on what they feel is the best game, and the sum of those should determine a winner where American Pinball will take that game into production.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's no information at this time as what the developers will get in compensation for having doing the design work on a game, but it's a way for any homebrew, and it doesn't need to be a new game. It could be a game which has been presented before, but it needs to be developed sufficiently that it's ready to for the American Pinball team to do the same kind of tweaks and adjustments and make it production ready as they have for Legends of Valhalla.
Right.
Which I'm not downplaying that at all, because I'm sure there was a significant amount of work. Some of the things were certainly changed on Legends of Valhalla to make it more fun. The addition of the Thor hammer and the magnet underneath it, which replaced what was previously just an uppost, and the beefing up of the sounds and the music and the voice calls and that kind of stuff. So what they're looking for, and I'm not sure exactly who's gonna have the overriding say on this. I'm sure I'd like to think it'd be American Pinball who would make the final call on it, rather than it being subject to a public vote. But they'll be looking to see just how ready it is to take into production, how much extra work it needs, and it's a great chance for somebody who's just developing a game, and it could be their dream theme, and it's rather than just being their garage project, can actually go out into the wider world. And so from the clock is ticking until I guess it's going to be October 2022 to get your game ready.
Yeah. Interestingly, and I'll give you a little scoop here, I'm intending to enter that competition.
My goodness, I think I know what you might be putting forward, but
you might be right. But this is certainly.
We won't discuss that any further at this stage.
No, but I do have actually a very simple yet extremely fun, I would say, game design that I've developed already a couple of years ago, which I have a virtual version actually running, and I'm looking to prototype it. If I can manage to do that, why not bring it to Expo? Unless I find already a manufacturer who's interested in doing it before that. But if Plan A fails, then there's always Plan B, and who knows, American Pinball might end up choosing it as being the best game in the competition next year. Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed. And I know exactly which game you're talking about, and it is a fun one. And let's see how you can develop it over the coming 12 months.
Right. So. Yeah, so that I think sums it up for American Pinball.
I think so.
There is, of course, the American Pinball seminar that was held at Pinball Expo, which you can watch back on the Pinball Expo Twitch channel. So if you're interested in that, then make sure to see what they had to say at the event. They were joined with David Fix, of course, was there. Josh Kugler was there. Scott and Frank of
Riot
Pinball were there, and there was one other guy, and I really apologize for not remembering his name. I think it was a mechanical engineer, if I'm not mistaken. So, but anyway, do check out the stream on the Pinball Expo Twitch channel for American Pinball. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so moving on, and our second headline was from Chicago Gaming.
Yes.
And they also, tie in with Pinball Expo, because it was at Pinball Expo where they finally revealed what everybody already knew was coming, their Cactus Canyon remake.
Right.
And we knew it was coming. We just hadn't seen it yet and hadn't been officially launched. Yeah. And I have to say it was a bit of a strange launch, to be honest. Didn't really go that smoothly. But at the end of the day, the star of the show was the game.
Right. I sort of sense what you're hinting at. From what I got, so American Pinball had a seminar scheduled, and basically Ryan White introduced himself and said, "Well, this is the game, and are there any questions?"
Yeah. So it was kind of the game was wheeled in just before the start of the scheduled seminar time. It sat there. Ryan was obviously having a bit of problem getting his video to download, his promotional video to download and play. In the meantime, people were walking up to the game, having a look, taking photographs and video and that kind of stuff. It was the limited edition that they had there, which has a very nice topper to it and a nice bottom arch as well. But there's no explanation about what they were seeing or what it costs or anything like that. It was just sitting there in attract mode. And then eventually the video kind of played, but didn't play all the way through and kind of stopped halfway. And as you said, then it was kind of like, well, okay, here's some basic facts about it, which are that there will be two versions, a standard edition and a limited edition. At least initially, there'll be the two versions. There might be another version.
I have to make a comment about that because I believe there's two indications for the less featured game. Because at one point it was called the standard version, and at other points it was called the special version. And I've even seen mailings from distributors offering the special edition. So I'm a little bit torn in between. Like, is it a special edition or is it the standard edition? Because it both starts with an S, which is not very convenient.
It was an SE and an LE. I thought the SE was a standard edition, and I've certainly seen it referenced out. Now there's also the potential, and I've seen this written on various places, of an extended edition, an XE, but I don't know whether that's certainly not confirmed at this stage.
Right.
So I'm not entirely sure what else they could add to the game.
There is going to be the additional code by Lyman Sheets and Josh Sharp, which was announced at the beginning of the month that they were working for Chicago Gaming. And as it turns out, during Expo, that additional game code will be a paid add-on.
So yes, and it won't be available for some time because they've only just started working on it.
Right. But still, it's interesting, and that would be the first iteration of a paid code update.
Yes, I suppose it is. Although, I mean, it's arguable that you could say that that's what the P3 machine does. Because you can buy the playfield,
true,
and then you can download more software to play it in a different way.
I stand corrected, thank you.
But let's go back to the basics of this.
Okay, so we have the limited edition
SE and the LE. Yes,
yes,
SE and LE. Let's call them that.
Right. Okay. So the limited edition has this shooting gallery topper on top of the back box, which has a bionic Bard figure in the center with his arms moving. That reminds me of a little bit of Champion's Pup.
Yes, that's right, yeah. Well, except they spin all the way around, and on Champion Pub, they only sort of move up and down a certain amount. They sort of punch.
Yeah.
Whereas this time the arms can rotate 360 degrees on either side. It looks a bit weird, to be honest, but but that aside, it's a nice animated model. Now the SE version will be priced at $8,000, and the LE version will be $1,250 more at $9,250, and
limited to 1,250 units, if I'm not mistaken.
I say the price difference is $1,250, and the number of LE units is also 1,250.
Right.
Don't know if there's any symmetry there, but and apparently they all sold out very quickly. So if you want to get a limited edition version of it, which looks like it's the way to go, given the relatively close prices and all the extra features you get, including the topper and also better paint trim and shaker motor and there's a whole bunch of different changes to the playfield, which we can go into another time. But the topper that you mentioned, we did talk about before on this PINcast, and we were speculating on how exactly it would work, that you'd shoot the bad guys and not shoot the good guys. But apparently there isn't a sort of gun that you draw. It is all done with the flipper buttons.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it lights up on the left and you either shoot or you don't shoot, or it lights up on the right and you either shoot or don't shoot, depending on whether it's a good guy or a bad guy or gal.
Right. So, well, usually Chicago Gaming also has a third model. I'm trying to get a picture here. Usually they have a classic edition, a special edition, and a limited edition. So the classic edition usually has an orange dot matrix display, smaller also. Can't remember if the special edition or SE, whatever we want to call it, that we've seen at the show has the big color.
That's a full color. Yes, they both have the full color wide display.
So let's go.
There isn't a classic, or hasn't been shown as being a classic version yet.
Yeah. So, well, but I suppose there weren't that many of those sold anyway, considering the upgrade that you're able to get, or the benefits of the special and limited editions in previous games.
Yes, and it's also worth mentioning that both the SE and the LE, as presented, have updated code on them. Yes. Which adds some extra features. Obviously, it works with the topper on the LE, but also it's got the Bionic Bart mode added in, which was missing from the original rules, but added in the continued version of Cactus Canyon. But you can also, if you want, just flick it back to the classic rules as were in the Bally version of the game.
Right.
If that's how you want to play it, you want to keep it old school, you can do that as well.
Right. Obviously, the game has colored animation based on the original dot matrix display animations, but completely redrawn in a higher resolution. And what's also interesting to notice is that the Bionic Bart figure on the playfield has been completely redesigned. It's a different face, a little bit bigger from the way that I remember it. And of course, the face now is similar to the one of Bionic Bart on the topper of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and it looks a little bit more bad, I would say.
Yeah, more menacing. I think that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
It's also we should mention. Everyone's talking about connectivity to the internet at the moment. Chicago Gaming haven't added or haven't developed an internet connected system at the moment, but they did say they were talking to the company Scorbit, who we mentioned earlier and we'll be talking to later, about incorporating their system into the Chicago Gaming software in the same way that Jersey Jack Pinball have done exactly that. And the other change that they've made is that they've rewritten their operating system. But previously, when they were doing the remakes, there was the classic Williams Bally menu system, and then there was a separate button which took you into the settings for the Chicago gaming settings.
Right.
Now all that's been combined into one standard menu, so it's not split anymore. So it's a lot more integrated, and you just have to go to one place if you want to change something, which is obviously makes sense, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So
good. So both versions of the game were set up for people to play on the Chicago Gaming Stand at Pinball Expo, and I think people were impressed from what I've heard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the seminar was a bit odd, I would say, but okay, there's some information there. You can watch it back, and basically after the Q&A was done, it was just like the rest of the hour streaming of people playing the game. Or
the game's
watching
out
the
there.
backs of people playing the game.
Yeah, the game was on the floor in the vendor hall. So go out and play it. Was the message?
What I did find interesting, I was watching the seminar live, and at the same time I was browsing on my computer on Facebook, and several people were actually streaming gameplay from various games at Pinball Expo from their phones and so on. So in that sense, it was kind of hard to miss if you're connected with those parties or distributors that were streaming gameplay during Expo. So I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a good way of doing it, I suppose, in getting a sort of getting the mass stream simultaneously from across the show.
I still sense a little bit that there was a little bit of rush to get the game there, because I don't think I've seen any promotional material. And
no, I got some distributor emails, and they were saying we haven't got any official pictures yet, but here are the details, and if you want to order it, then contact us.
Right. Okay. If you're, by the way, still looking for a Cactus Canyon game, I think Planetary Pinball mentioned on their Facebook that they are the biggest distributor for Chicago gaming remake games. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking for a game, they might have a certain allotment that is not sold out yet. It's reserved for them, so it does count towards the 1250 units, but they might not be completely sold out. So basically, sold out currently means that all the distributors have ordered all available 1,250 games, but they might still have games available.
Yeah, it may not have sold them all yet at this stage.
Yes.
So so check with your local distributor if you are tempted to get a Cactus Canyon remake. And I think a lot of people were expecting the limited edition to be more expensive than it was. So I think that was a pleasant surprise. I think they were mooting it would be over $10,000. So when it came in at $9,250, there was a lot of excitement.
Well, we don't know yet how much the code update from Lyman Sheets and Josh Sharp will be, but
yeah, true. Or indeed what will be in it, and whether it will be worth spending the money. But we'll see, and that won't arrive for a while. So there's plenty of time for people to enjoy their game as it is now, and before thinking about spending some more money on it.
Right. Okay. Well, that's also a good way to generate more money. So have people play the game for a year or so, and then hey, there's more stuff available. You want to buy it? Where they might be reluctant paying everything up front. But then again, oh well.
Yeah, that almost leads us very nicely into our next company. Who
can it be?
Yes. Well, okay. Let's go to Stern Pinball then. And it's been a busy month for them as well.
Oh yeah, lots of news from Stern Pinball. So I think the news that surprised the people the most was a press release where Stern Pinball announced that they hired Seth Davis as president of Stern Pinball. Seth Davis is coming from Disney, and currently Gary Stern is CEO, chairman, and president of Stern Pinball. well, he was president. He still is CEO and chairman. And
Yes.
well, that sort of made me wonder. Okay, if he's no longer president, then what is he no longer doing?
Yeah. Well, only one way to find out.
How about we give Gary Stern a call?
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay, so.
Hello?
Oh my God, I got the wrong Gary.
Hello?
What? Oh, you idiot.
Sorry, Gary. I meant to call Gary Stern.
Okay.
Talk to you in a bit. Thank you. Bye.
No problem.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
it's embarrassing.
I got the wrong.
Yeah.
I dialed the number for the wrong Gary. Let me try again.
Yeah, okay, let's do it properly this time.
Jonathan.
Gary.
Jonathan.
How nice to talk to you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Seth is sitting here with me, and we have a few minutes before we have to go to our next thing.
Right.
So you were asking about Seth joining us.
Yes. So, well, thank you for joining us, Seth, and welcome to the company, I suppose.
Happy to be here. Suppose, definitely. I'm thrilled.
Right. Okay. So, if you don't mind me asking, Gary, so you're stepping down as president of Stern Pinball, and that makes me wonder, what tasks will you no longer be doing, and what will Seth be doing?
Well, that's a good question, which we will work out over time. Seth, I remain as the chairman and the CEO for the time being. My partner, Dave Peterson, remains as the vice chairman and EVP. Mike O'Donnell stays as our CFO. George continues as our chief creative officer. Kevin continues as chief operations officer. And John Biscaglia continues as the chief revenue officer. So what we've done is we have started to look towards our future and developing a further management team that will go on. I'm 76 years old, Jonathan, and we need to continue the pinball company and the pinball market and its growth to the future. So Seth's going to tell you a little bit about himself, but management remains intact and growing. Yes, I'll be the CEO for a while. We'll see how that progresses and how long. Seth's learning right now, but he knows a lot that deals with our future direction, and our future direction is not a change in a direction, but an addition. Many years ago we were basically a coin-op commercial company. We developed as the world was changing into a commercial game and collector, enthusiast, and general homeowner game, and that was a change and a growth in the business and in the market segments. And to augment all of those segments, we have started with George's development over the last 2 years and millions of dollars invested to create Insider Connected, and this is the next development of pinball. The game's still under the glass, but the development of what this does, and if you talk to people who are at Pinball Expo, you'll see how excited they were, or people who went to the bar arcade, Logan Hardware, or Logan Arcade. Now, you've been there, so you know what I'm talking about. We had an event there, very successful. So Seth can tell you a little bit about his background with the Disney company, and before that with GE. I'm going to let him do that, and then I might let you ask a second question, because all of this is still the answer to your first question. So, Seth, tell a little bit about yourself.
Sure. It's nice to meet you. I'm Seth.
Likewise.
And I'm a week in now to being at Stern and part of the team, and learning a lot from Gary and the rest of the team here. As Gary said, my background is in a variety of connected gaming products. So I worked at Disney for about 13 years. I spent some time the last couple of years working on Disney streaming, things like Disney Plus and their connected services. Before that, I spent a decade in the games business doing a variety of products, some of which were connected products like Disney Infinity, and Star Wars Jedi Challenges. Before that, I did grad school, and before that, I was at GE, and so I have some experience with manufacturing and physical products and some of the stuff that we do here. So I'm very excited to be here. Business is doing extremely well. Stern Company is doing extremely well, and I'm happy to be here to help take the company to the next level.
Right. So have you already got an idea what your task will be? Since, well, we know Gary, and I don't think there's many people in this hobby or industry that can see Gary slowing down.
Well, I'm getting a little older, but having said that also, we have to develop and have the future of this business. And, there's a lot of people who enjoy our games, both to make their living and as their hobby. And we have a lot of employees, both here and in our extended community. There's, 350 people in our building at any day, an extended community of people making their living, supplying us parts, maybe 3,000 people have a good part of their living coming from it. So we have to secure the future. We'll sort out how we do all this. Ultimately, Seth's the president. He's going to have a day-to-day responsibility that I don't have. But, give us time. But more important than that, you'll get a chance. You guys don't come to IAPAS, but you will get a chance in London. You usually come by there, and you'll both be there, I'm sure. So you'll meet Seth, and you'll have a chance to talk with him at great length.
Okay, well, I'm already looking forward to that. So, does that mean that you still will be traveling the world, the globe, to promote Stern Pinball, or are you slowing down on that slowly as well?
I'll tell you, I'm going to answer this in a very, what I think, an interesting way. Yeah, I slowed down traveling the world. You're not allowed to. There's COVID out there.
Right.
I have not been out of the country in a long time. I didn't leave Chicago for some time. I travel around the United States, but, one of the things that's concerning about traveling out of this country is getting back. And, yeah, we're allowed to come back, but if you test positive 3 days before you come back, which you may be I've been vaccinated, but you can get stuck. I have friends who've been stuck, for an unplanned vacation of a month in Italy. Now, that sounds great unless you're quarantined in Italy, So, the world is under a lot of pressure right now, Jonathan. So I can't answer how much I'm going to travel, but it's not related. I'll probably, if it was unrestricted, I would probably travel just as much, but only because I like to travel. I might not work while I'm doing it, but I pretend to be working. But Seth, you were starting to say, and then we're gonna have to run along to our next thing, Jonathan.
Yeah, so there's a few focuses for me, and one of them is what Gary just referred to, which is we're spending a lot of time with our partners and customers, getting to know them, getting to know their needs, and what people are looking for. And so, speaking with our partners and our customers and listening to them is a big part of what I'm doing here over the next few months. In addition to spending time with the leadership team here, as well as providing some input on, Insider Connected and where that all goes next. So those are kind of the most important tasks for the near term.
Right. Okay. I'll let you guys go to your meeting. Thank you for your time, for answering a few questions, and looking forward to meet you in London.
And I look forward just to seeing you in general again. It's been too long, Jonathan.
It is, I know. I used to be at Expo, but I wasn't there last week.
Yeah, I know. So, and you missed a great show. Anyhow, we had a great time, a great showing, and a lot of people signing up for Insider Connected.
Great.
And a lot of operators were there, really interested in signing up for it. So, anyhow, we're going to move along to our next obligation, and I'm glad you called. It's good talking with you.
Okay. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
And there you have it. Gary Stern,
very good.
Yeah, Gary Stern and Seth Davis. Very interesting to. What's your take on this?
Well, I would say when the press release came out, Gary Stern was very bullish and saying he's still chairman and CEO and he's going to be there until he basically pegs out, and they'll be carrying him out in a Stern Pinball box with his boots on, he said. But in that interview, it certainly sounded like he was sort of getting ready to stand down before too long. He said he's still chairman and CEO for now, but that didn't give the impression that he was going to be there for a long time.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Absolutely. So remember where you heard it first.
Yeah, an awful lot of talk about needing to plan for the future and develop a line of succession. And as you say, you heard it in that interview right here on the Pinball Magazine, Pinball News PINcast.
Right. So, but there was lots of other news from Stern Pinball.
Well, but before we move on, I think it's probably just worth having a little rumination on Seth's appointment as president, because although we didn't actually get to find out exactly what he's going to be doing,
he still doesn't know himself.
No, he's going to spend 90 days, he said, learning the business before he actually sort of starts making any kind of decisions about what needs to be done.
Right.
But you said in the introduction that he comes from Disney, where he was responsible for, at least partly responsible, if not entirely, for their streaming services, Disney Plus, and I forget what their other streaming service was. But it's basically about revenue generation.
Right.
So he's a guy who knows how to build revenue from customers from a company and get them to subscribe to services. And that's something which we've been talking about quite a lot recently with the Insider Connected system, which we'll talk more about later. But it certainly wouldn't be an entire surprise if the Insider Connected is seen as a major revenue stream on top of game sales, and an ongoing one, a subscription service in the same way that Disney Plus is a popular and lucrative income stream for Disney.
Right. So it's it looks like it's heading that way. At the same time, I'm wondering what that job interview went like. I mean, so what will you be doing? Well, we don't know yet.
Yeah. Yes, as you I mean, your first question to Gary was sort of hit the nail on the head. What are you not doing that you were doing before? And then at least we know what Seth is going to be doing.
Right.
But we'll find that out in due course, I'm sure. And we'll both be there at, as you said, at the London show in January to interview them. And I might actually be able to get to speak to them a little bit before that. But we'll talk about that a bit later. What my plans are for the coming month.
Right. Okay. Now, speaking of Stern Insider Connected, those kits that you need to make your game Insider Connected, so to speak.
Yes.
Those are now available from distributors for $199.
Yes, that's right. They're in relatively short supply at the moment, and they are distributors are being instructed to sell them to operators rather than to home collectors, because they want to get more people out there using the Insider Connected system, and putting it on location will obviously attract more. Well, will be there in front of more people than it would be if it's sitting in your home game room or basement or whatever. So that's their plan at the moment. They obviously intend to bring out a lot more kits, but we've spoken many times about supply chain issues, and it affects everyone, and Stern haven't shied away from the fact that it's impacted on them either. So that kit is available in I was going to say two forms, but actually there's a whole range of different forms. But there's one for the pro machines, if you're fitting it to a Pro machine, then you get an entire new bottom arch or bottom apron with the QR code reader installed, and it's and the decals for that QR code reader. But because that fits across every model that they've, or every title that they've produced,
Except
they say that's true. Yeah, there are a few. Good point. They say you should be able to peel off the decals off your old apron and apply them to the new one. But if they get damaged, then they will. You'll be able to get new ones from Stern for that,
which you can buy for an additional fee.
I'm sure, very reasonable. I'm sure. They're obviously keen to keep. It's $199 for an entire new bottom arch with a QR code reader, and as well as a Wi-Fi dongle, wiring kit in order to power it, and a micro SD card. Well, I don't quite know what that does. Maybe it's a software update, but that's included as well. So that's not, for Stern, $199. It indicates that they're not price gouging customers on that, and they want to get the system out there and get it adopted, so they can then start charging you for the Insider Connected services. Yeah. But for the LE models, and the premium models, they have a different bottom arch, a metal one, and they have sort of illuminated inserts on them. And in this case, the kits basically replace the plastic inserts that you've got there, and allow you to put the QR code reader in there, and come with decals to add to the game, but along with the Wi-Fi dongle and the micro SD card and the wiring kits as well. So, there are a few sort of awkward games where it doesn't quite work that way, such as Batman, Elvira, the Beatles, and Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Good point, yeah. Yeah, so they're not available yet for those games, but will be soon. I mean, obviously they're working flat out to get this system pushed out to as many people as they possibly can.
Right.
But
speaking of...
and there'll be signs as well. Yeah, sorry, decals and signs and things that you can stick up to say this is a Insider Connected game.
Yeah, okay. Now, if you have any questions about Insider Connected, George Gomez did a full hour seminar at Pinball Expo on the subject of Stern Insider Connected, where he went into very much detail about the possibilities it creates for operators and players, and I think it was rather interesting, and I think Stern is even planning on educating operators how to use Insider Connected to boost their revenue, which I think is a positive thing, and also probably much needed, because there are plenty of operators who are no marketeers or have no clue how to handle all this data that suddenly is available to them. So you might have to teach them first what the data is telling them and how they can benefit from knowing this data to their advantage.
Yeah, there are a couple of very interesting points coming out of that seminar at Pinball Expo. One of which was about the timeline for the rollout of Insider Connected. It was originally going to be much further developed than it is at the moment before it was launched, but the pandemic basically put a stop to all work. The funding for it was frozen when the factory was shut down, and was only fairly recently reinstated. So there's an awful lot more to come for the Insider Connected program, and what you'll be able to do with it, and the features and the challenges and everything you'll get from scanning yourself in to a game before you play it. But that's going to roll out over the coming year. And it was also interesting to trying to get what the other interesting point was. How it was developed from the all access thing, which was John Buscaglia driven system in order to provide a kind of loyalty scheme for pinball players, and also the fact that George said that he is sort of very much a a proponent of downloadable content for games. You know, he was likening it to his Xbox or his PlayStation. You know, when you playing a racing game, that it then offers you the opportunity to buy another pack of different cars that you could be racing. And he said, "I am the guy that kind of buys that stuff," and that's what's driving his thoughts really, as far as Insider Connected goes, and downloadable content in general for new games.
So and that down, I think he mentioned a couple of things, although might not remember it correctly. But he mentioned with certain achievements you can download exclusive artwork, for example, in some way and print that yourself or what have you. But he gave a couple of examples in that seminar of the benefits of playing with Insider Connected and how it enhances your game. And you can also collect certain stuff that you otherwise would not be able to collect. So
that's right. There was like a treasure chest where you get given gifts and and achievements as well, which is a big thing. And you'll be able to get the badges, as you said, to get those either electronically or in physical form, if you that's a thing you like collecting.
Right. So,
but as I say, a lot of this is going to be rolling out in big ways throughout 2022.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on what Pinsider Insider Connected is going to have, not Pinsider Connected, necessarily, and of course we'll bring you all the details here as well.
Right. There was one other thing that I found very interesting, although it wasn't mentioned in the Stern Insider Connected seminar. Actually, Keith Elwin mentioned it in the Godzilla seminar, where basically he indicated that Godzilla was supposed to be a George Gomez game. Up to the point where George said, told Keith, Keith had shown interest in the theme, and George told him that he couldn't get it because he wanted to do it himself. And then George was too busy with Insider Connected. At least that's what I assume. So,
yes, I think that's right. Yeah. And also, don't forget, George is bringing out his own game as well.
Right. So, so that's how Keith ended up doing Godzilla instead of George, and that sort of made me wonder. And I was I did try to ask that question in the chat of the seminars at Pinball Expo, but didn't get asked to George, which I was hoping would happen. I'm actually curious whether we will see another game from George, or whether he's now more dedicated to making Insider Connected become a success. So, but well, we don't know the answer yet. So hopefully we get the chance to ask George in the future. Maybe he come to London or another show in the US where he might be willing to answer that question.
Yeah. Okay. Well, more on that later. But that's only just that's just one of the things that's been going on at Stern. Well, one of the other things that's been going on at Stern. We've mentioned Seth as president and Insider Connected kits, but there's been game releases as well, or game announcements. So let's start with the first
reveals
of those.
Even. Two. The first being the 40th anniversary. Sorry about that. The 40th anniversary edition rerun of Elvira's House of Horrors. And no, it's not that Cassandra Peterson, who plays the character of Elvira, turned 40. No, she turned 70. But Elvira is already 40 years part of her life. And that's celebrated with this special edition, limited to 199 units. And what was interesting in the press release, and I think... it was only mentioned in the press release. There was usually Stern mentions the MSRP for their games. In this case, all they said was call for a price.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Rumor has it that the game is sold to distributors for $15,000, and they are free to mark it up with whatever they think they can get for it.
Yes, it's a strange game, but a strange release. But
it's not the first time that they bended the distributor pricing model a little bit. I think Stern is sort of testing the waters with how far they can go with these type of new pricing strategies. I mean, if you remember when they did Beatles, the games were sold in lots of 10, 7 gold, 2 platinums and 1 diamond game. For a total price of, I think, from the top of my head, don't quote me on it if it's wrong, but I think $70,000 for 10 of those games, and distributors were all free to charge whatever they wanted for those games. This is slightly different, but still with some similarities.
Yeah, it's the model kind of sits in underneath the signature edition of Elvira's House of Horrors, which was the one that came with the little swatch from her couch, which I think there were only like 50 of those or something like that.
Yes,
and above the limited edition version, which I don't know how many of those there were. I can't remember exactly, but there are 199 of these. So it's. The design of it is has very purple. I think it's fair to say it's got purple trim, purple legs, purple armor, everything.
I
all
think
round.
some of the red in the original cabinet has now been turned to purple.
Yes, it's got different cabinet artwork as well. I think the back box is the same, except it's now got an Elvira 40 years sticker applied to it, as has the cabinet as well. So I don't think that's changed. But I think it might have some different interior art as well. And the game comes with an autographed Elvira trading card, which the signature edition did as well, but also an autographed copy of her memoirs, Yours Cruelly, Elvira's memoirs of the mysteries of the dog.
Right.
So that comes with that, although I suspect that's probably not too difficult to get elsewhere if that was the thing that sealed the deal for you. But it comes with what they call paranormal purple sparkle powder coated pinball armor.
Right.
So there you go. And of course, this being a new game from Stern, it means it comes with the Insider Connected already installed, which is the first Elvira game to have that.
Right. Okay. So I would not be surprised if all 199 units are already sold out.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
But you might still be able to find one with certain distributors, I suppose. It's interesting to see a rerun of a game that I personally didn't think was going to see a rerun.
No,
or a new model. I wasn't expecting this one, so.
No, but I mean, I've seen prices being quoted of 25 to 28 from distributors, so I think that's not a bad markup for a designer for a distributor if they are getting it for 15 and can sell it for 10,000 or more,
right.
Which isn't bad. Yep.
No, true. But this wasn't the only new game that Stern announced.
It most certainly was not, because, we know, we're very familiar with the Jurassic Park pin that was designed by Keith Elwin. It's been out for some time, but there's now a new home version of Jurassic Park pin, as in capital pin, which has been designed by Jack Danger. And I think this has been sort of quite widely trailed that he was working on a project for Stern Pinball. And this is exactly what he's been doing as his first game design for them.
Yeah.
Jack obviously very well known as a pinball internet streamer through his Dead Flip Twitch channel and YouTube channels.
Okay.
But and of course he's been designing his own game. In fact, several games on his YouTube channel. You can see his progress there, and had help from many people in order to bring that to conclusion. And I think when he did, he sufficiently impressed Stern and George Gomez that they offered him a job doing design, and this is the first title from him.
Yes, and I think it's very interesting that if you do your first game and you get immediately the license for Jurassic Park, I think they have a very good faith in the qualities of Jack as a designer. Yes,
this is the home version, as we said before, and it's it's the next in the series of pin games, and
and for future years, Stern tends to come out with such a game, such a home version game in the fall, trying to benefit from the Christmas season, I suppose.
That's right. Yeah, get all those holiday season sales, and indeed they are going to be producing it in time for that, and it's a smaller game. Obviously, there are some cost reductions because it hits the price point of $4,599, which is $1,600 less than the Pro version, and $1,900 less if you consider the Pro with the entirely connected QR code reader installed.
Right.
Which they charge an extra $300 for. So it's a decent saving, and unusually, it's not just a re-arting of an existing home version, which we've seen before. It's actually a completely different design that Jack's come up with, and different software from
and it has
a
very interactive toy, which we haven't seen earlier on the pin models.
Yes, well, that's right. Yes, that mechanical designer Rob Blakeman's come up with a very nice T-Rex mouth design, which allows the balls to roll in underneath and come out through the mouth itself.
Right.
Which I think it makes it more interactive than the Pro model is, to be honest, because I think the Pro model doesn't do much, does it? The T-Rex head above the ramp.
I haven't played it yet. Sorry, can't answer that. So, it's also nice to mention that software was done by Wei-Sin Cheng.
Yeah.
Who, it's a regular face at Stern. I think he worked a lot on WrestleMania back in the day and other games as well. Actually, he was already there when Stern was still doing Dot Matrix games. So he's almost a senior at Stern, I would say.
Yeah, he's been doing some quite a lot of stuff on the Entirely Connected as well, I believe. So, so the team there put that together, and yes, if you want to, it's being sold through the standard distributor network. There's, I don't think it's going to be sort of turning up in a supermarket or like a Walmart
Costco
yeah. So contact your usual Stern distributor if you're interested in getting one of those. The only downside to me is that the display is very small on that game. It has an LCD display, but it is really quite tiny.
Well, that's one of the things that's easiest to upgrade if you want to.
Oh well, yes, but you'd have to replace the whole
speaker panel. Yes,
speaker panel. It could be done, and I'm assuming it's just a standard like HDMI feed going into it.
Right.
But it just seems that it could be a little bit bigger than that, and it would shout as being good value. Whereas that to me looks like a cheapening of it. Where the rest of it looks absolutely top notch.
Oh yeah, it looks like a very good game. Still consider I think the playfield and possibly also the cabinet is not standard plywood but MDF.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
and the cabinet's sort of bolted together as well with highly visible bolts. But at the end of the day, it's a cabinet, and as people have said many times, you don't play the cabinet.
No, but if you put it in a moist room, then MDF is not your friend, I suppose.
That's true. Yeah.
So, but congratulations to Jack on his first game, and and the rest of the team, of course.
And more congratulations to you as well at Stern Pinball, because at Pinball Expo, Gary Stern was had a nice presentation made to him.
Yes, he was inducted into the International Video Game Hall of Fame in the category of Walter Day Lifetime Achievement Awards for the class of 2021. Which is quite a mouthful, but
It is, yeah.
Yeah. I suppose it's a Lifetime Achievement Award, and
Yes.
many of you may not be familiar with the video games that Gary Stern actually was involved in during his days at Stern Electronics.
Yes, it was. Stern were a major producer of video games during the boom of the early '80s, and I'm not a video game historian, so I wouldn't be able to read off any of the titles that they did produce. But I'm fully aware that they did produce many of them.
Yes, I don't think there were that many standout titles. I think they might have had one hit game. Which I can't remember what the title is. So here's a contest.
I seem to remember Berserk as being one of theirs, but I could be wrong on that. So, but I do seem to tie in Berserk game with seeing big Stern logo on the side of the cabinet. But well, yeah, go on then. Do your contest and what the prize is.
Yeah, then we have to give away video games. Then we have to give away prizes. We only do that on our
So you think you
events.
know Pinball quiz?
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. Yes,
and as we haven't been able to go to any shows recently, we haven't been doing that.
right. So, but I do have a list of arcade games manufactured by Stern Electronics.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I can name a few. It's a list of I think close to 30 titles. Berserk is certainly one of them. Astro Invader, Scramble, Super Cobra, Turtles, Armored Car, Amidar, programmed by Konami, Frenzy, Tutankhamun, Puyan, Rescue, Anteater. It's all titles that I seriously never ever played. But it's like a list of I think close to 30 titles. So it's very logical to induct Gary Stern into the or at least award him a Lifetime Achievement Award for his work in arcade video games between the period of 1980 and 1984. So.
No, okay, that was the time span, was it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, after which he was doing Data East, I suppose.
I do remember Stern in the early days of Stern Pinball, as we know it. They also did a Monopoly redemption game, and they experimented with a Spider-Man redemption game and some other stuff. But I think they quickly abandoned those. And many people might not even read it. Well, Spooky Cookie Carnival or Simpsons Cookie Carnival. Yeah. It's also not a pinball machine, but developed by Stern. So. Yeah,
originally called Simpsons Crazy Carnival, but subsequently renamed.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Right. Okay, then some hot news, which was shared all over social media, and I was very happy that it happened. There was a photo shoot by actress and singer Jennifer Lopez, not a very unfamiliar name, I suppose.
No.
Posing in a game room in front of a Stern Jurassic Park game. Of course, Stern shared it, but many other people also shared photos of, can't ignore that she's a beautiful woman and a very sexy one, and it's very interesting to see her pose in a game room. Too bad she wasn't playing a game, just posing with the machines and the vibe of that room, I suppose, in terms of lighting and so on. Very nice photo. So if you're on social media, either you already saw them or look them up.
I have to admit, I didn't see that one, but I will go and check it out. Thank you.
Okay, so and then, there's code update news. Well,
we'll just mention, I think, that there were a couple of code updates for Godzilla, which is not really surprising considering it's the latest game and still actively being developed. Version 0.80.0 is the current version. And before that was version 0.79.0, which had quite a lot of changes to it, not unsurprisingly. But there's too many to list here, really. But there's a lot of mode changes, a lot of scoring change, balance changes. So super jackpots and things score 2 million rather than 1 million, and some values have gone up, some gone down. So just little tweaks to make it a little more balanced in the way that the game plays, as well as a few bugs, of course, as we always get, and some adjustment changes as well in the menus for how long people get to play the modes. So. If you're interested in that, you'll only be interested in that if you've got the game, really, or are about to play it. So if you are, go to the Stern website and you can go to the software download menu, click on the you accept to sign away your life, and you can read the notes for yourself.
Right, okay. And last but not least on Stern Pinball, obviously they had a big presence at Pinball Expo. Which started with a virtual tour of the Stern factory, which was actually a paid event that you had to pay $60 for. It was a live feed from the factory, which was broadcast in a special room at Pinball Expo that you could only access if you bought a ticket. And that stream would not be shared anywhere else, so I haven't seen it. And then traditionally, Stern sort of takes over the Pinball Expo Saturday after the autograph session.
Yes.
So if you're interested in hearing from various Stern pinball designers and other employees, it started at 3 p.m. with the making of Led Zeppelin. Hosted by Tim Saxon and, not surprisingly, no Steve Ritchie, although Steve designed the game. Followed by Jack Danger and Jason discussing their Jurassic Park project. The making of The Mandalorian with Brian Eddy and Dwight Sullivan was next after that. George Gomez did his Insider Connected talk, followed by Keith Elwin and his team discussing Godzilla, and it was the evening was closed off with Family Feud Without the Family, a quiz hosted by Dwight Sullivan and Corey Stubb.
Yep. So basically, Stern took over the entire Saturday after evening session.
Yeah.
With seminar after seminar after seminar.
Yes. But highly informative, highly recommended. So check out Pinball Expo on Twitch to watch these seminars again.
Yes, and also a little plug there. If you go to the Pinball News article about it, you can see a short write-up about each one, as well as a link to take you straight to the relevant portion of the Pinball Expo Twitch stream. Because it's at the moment, and I'm sure it will change. The entire day is just presented as one long, 13-hour clip, and to find the actual seminar you want is not so easy. Certainly not to find the start of it when you're scrolling along 13 hours of a timeline, trying to find the exact second where the seminar starts, and not the bit where they're setting up the microphones and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
those links are available. Yeah, on Pinball News. And I also have on the Pinball Magazine website an article with the highlights of Pinball Expo that also includes the links to the direct links to these video seminars.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Okay. So we got you covered wherever you end up reading about it. So that was That was almost the end of the Stern Pinball news. There's one more item though, which was indirect, really, and it's a story about a chap called Wayne Tedder, who comes from Ontario in Canada, and has beaten the world record for the longest playing pinball player on the same game.
Nice fun there.
Yeah, yes. It's the official title recognised by the Guinness World Records Authority, or it's going to be shortly, once it's verified, and took place at the Player One Amusement Group, their showroom in Ontario, in a place called Mrs. Salga, who I don't know who she is, but apparently that's where it took place, and the reason it's in the Stern section is because he was playing a Stern Beatles Gold Edition machine from Thursday, October the 21st, from 8:09 a.m. and it continued until Saturday, October the 23rd at 8:09 a.m. So two full days.
Right.
It was all played on the same Beatles machine without any problems, although there was a standby machine available in case he needed it, but he didn't. So congratulations to him and to Player One Amusements for hosting the whole thing, and to Stern for producing a Beatles game which stood up to 48 hours of continuous play.
Yeah, well, not only that, I can only imagine that Wayne Tedder can't hear any Beatles songs from that game anymore for some time. I mean, no discredit to the game or whatsoever, but playing it for 48 hours non-stop, I don't think you can hear. Okay. Yeah, congratulations, Wayne.
Yes. Okay. Moving on swiftly.
Yes, Haggis Pinball in Australia.
Yes, they are building their Celts game.
Yeah, and providing us with lots of updates of almost anything you can think of.
Yeah, I seem to go in bursts of having no information and then going into overdrive and producing lots and lots, featuring every stand-up target and leaf switch and you name it. It's currently on their Facebook page.
Gluing of enclosures, printing decals, you name it, and you probably somebody wiping the floor. You might actually see a video of that as well.
Yeah, so, that's right.
But no, it's good that that these updates are coming, and the Celts nearing production, I would expect.
Yes, although there's no sign yet of any production of the Fathom Revisited games, though I guess they want to get the Celts ones done and dusted and out and to the customers, and then they can really get their teeth into the Fathom games.
Right. So so I suppose that's all to report on
I think so.
Pinball. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
While we're on the other side of the world, Homepin has also been teasing quite a bit.
Yeah, they have, which is unusual because normally you don't get very much from Mike and the team. But he's been showing pictures of parts for the upcoming This Is Spinal Tap game,
right?
Which as we announced here is their next title and is codenamed. Well, they refer to it as Tap, whereas the Thunderbirds game is referred to as Tag. So that's not confusing at all. The Tag name comes from back in the days when it was called Thunderbirds Are Go. Well, it was going to be called Thunderbirds Are Go after the TV series, but I don't know whether that's still going, whether it's gone, whether Thunderbirds are gone. But the game is just called Thunderbirds anyway. So that's Tag, and Spinal Tap is Tap. Anyway, so they've been showing pictures of things like the toroidal transformer that's going to be used for power on the game, rather than just using a switching power supply, which Mike in my opinion, quite rightly, as said, is not really designed for driving highly inductive loads like coils and solenoids and things like that. And also the new metal bottom apron, which he told us about before, which is going to replace the plastic one that was in use for tag. But I think the ones he was showing on Facebook were actually Thunderbirds ones, or these had Thunderbirds artwork on.
Yes.
Other than that, there was a little sneak picture of a bit of the playfield from Spinal Tap, showing some purple slingshot star posts, and the added information that the game will include pinball callouts from what is described as the original band members, but doesn't say how many of them or which ones. So, but it's good that they've actually got some custom callouts going into the game, which is excellent.
Exactly. Yes. So, I'm still waiting for photos of a completed and fully built playfield. Obviously, contractual obligations should have the game shipping before the end of the year, and we're getting closer and closer.
Yes, but equally, those same contractual obligations mean they can't show it until it's fully approved by the licensor, I'm sure. So, so that needs to be done.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, then, let's move back to the US. We found an interesting piece of information in the San Antonio Express News regarding Deep Root Pinball.
Yes, in our previous coverage of that, I was speculating and saying I didn't expect there would be any kind of criminal prosecution against Robert Mueller for everything that's gone down with the Deep Root family of companies, which includes Deep Root Pinball. And I thought it would just be limited to the civil cases, which the SEC is prosecuting, and any potential civil cases from investors. But I could be wrong on that, because according to the San Antonio Express News, the Roberts, let's see exactly what it says, the San Antonio investment advisor Robert Jeffrey Mueller is facing possible criminal prosecutions after security regulators referred their civil fraud case to the U.S. Attorney's Office. And Robert's attorney, who is one of his attorneys, Jay Hullings, said he'd already met with the assistant U.S. attorneys handling the case and said it's an investigation they are moving forward on. They may not have issued any subpoenas yet, but I think we can assume that those are probably coming. So it sounds like they're expecting some criminal prosecutions to be coming along, and in preparation for that, his lawyers have asked for $87,000 in order to build his criminal defence in preparation for that. So no indication whether that's been approved yet. I think there was a freeze on most of the expenditure from the Deep Root funds, but they were applying for money for living expenses, but and also, as we said in the last PINcast, also for potentially preparing for bankruptcy or closure of the businesses. Right. But they're asking for extra money in order to prepare for a criminal defence, which is it surprises me. I didn't think that was going to be happening, but we'll see if it does.
Well, living in Texas does have its benefits, but if you're going to jail there, I'm not sure that's a benefit.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. Assuming that he was to be found guilty, of course, of any criminal misdeeds. I do have a question, and I'm not sure whether you can answer it. But if this turns out to be a criminal case, does that mean that he gets arrested and locked up, or will he be able to stay out of jail until he has a court hearing? That very much depends upon whether he's able to get to post bail, or whether bail is granted in a situation like this. It probably would be, because I don't think he'd be much of a flight risk, to be honest, being as well known. But him being able to post his own bail might be a bit difficult if all his assets have been seized. So he might be able to get somebody else to post bail on his behalf, or and depends what the value of the bail is set at as well. So it's impossible to say, but I very much doubt he would be held in prison, to be honest. That's just my take. But in the meantime, one other item of Deep Root Pinball news is if you were looking to go to their website in order to remind yourself of the story of Razza and the upcoming games, and basically the website's gone. It's been taken down. So going to deeprootpinball.com doesn't get you anywhere at all now. It just comes up with a site not found.
But there's always the Internet Archive.
There is indeed, yes, and I'm sure it's been screen grabbed a number of times by various people over the years.
Right.
So that's Deep Root news, I think, from San Antonio.
Well, still some news. I wasn't expecting any. And of course, the news that Stephen Bowden already has found a new employer, which we mentioned earlier. Do we know of any other Deep Root employees that have found another employee yet?
No, I've seen a few posts from John Norris, who's sort of been touting his skills, saying basically designer for hire. I'm available if you need any work doing. But no, I don't know of any other confirmed appointments. We put it that way.
Right. Okay. Well, maybe who knows what will happen with some of the others that were in San Antonio. Moving north, close to the upcoming Midwest Gaming Classic.
Yes, don't remind us.
Spooky Pinball from Benton, Wisconsin, had some news. The first news they had, no, that's not true, but they had some code updates, which I'll let you get into. But we mentioned earlier that they were working on an expansion of their building, and they announced on their Facebook page that the final assembly and game inspection building addition is now finished. So construction work is done, and they are doing the final assembly and game inspection in that section of the add-on, so to speak, and it's done. So good for them. And
the pictures I've seen make it look a lot more spacious than it was previously in their old building. So
right, well, they need to build a lot of games. So
yeah, they do. Yeah, yes, and those two games that are currently building, of course, are Halloween and Ultraman.
Right,
and now, of course, Halloween has just been and gone, of course. From the end of October, the last day
the holiday you're
covering.
About. Yes,
indeed. Yes. And what better time to bring out a code update for the Halloween game? And
I understand with lots of new video.
Yes, apparently so. Well, lots of more audio added, lots of movie audio clips added throughout it. But yes, they have added more video as well. In fact, there's a whole bunch of things. There's a bunch of fixes as well, but also just like tweaks and adjustments and some more clips, like the Asylum intro has been updated, and tilt animations are now different, and there's a whole bunch of new animations and light shows and light shades as well in there. So I think that's starting to address some of the concerns that people had, I think, when they first saw the game and thought it was very lightly coded. So it's coming together, and it's going to take time, but they are moving there, and this is version 1.02, which came out on Halloween, but it was actually immediately removed because version 1.03 is imminent. So by the time you listen to this, 103 might even be on the website and available to update. And also Ultraman, as well, as we mentioned, that also had a code update this month, 102, the same as the Halloween was. And that's a smaller update, and just fixed a few sort of minor bugs in the game, and updated a few things like in the settings and like the flipper power and the timing for various things. So not a huge update, but certainly worth having if you have an Ultraman, and not many people have got them yet, but more will be coming, I'm sure.
Right. So also spooky related. Trying to look it up right now, but I'm not scrolling fast enough, I suppose. But I did see
the latest news.
Apparently there's a lot of Halloween collector's editions being offered for sale, priced at, for example, $1,500, where it's a game that was like over $7,000, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm wondering, are people selling their entire game or their spot in line for $1,500?
Well, I think both, from what I've heard, and some people I know bought more than one, and are selling the second one in order to effectively try and get enough profit to fund the first one, which is not a bad policy if you can do it, but it requires. I think when people first knew about the game, everybody rushed in and bought it, and sold out very quickly. Then there was the usual sort of buyer's remorse, and a few people dropped out, and some places became available, and they were then taken up. And then when people started getting the games, I think there was a sort of a slight underwhelming about the level of gameplay in it at that time. Even though everyone knows it's going to improve over time, but I think there's some people were then looking to either bail out either on the game that they've got or on their spot, so trying to sell that. But if they're trying to sell them for 15, and they're getting that, then that bodes well for how well the game is being received.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but I mean, I see people offering their spot for $1,500 or $2,000, and then of course you still have to pay for the rest of the game.
Oh, I see. Sorry, I was thinking 15,000. You're saying 1,500, right? Yes.
No, 1,500. Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So
it's for 15,000 that you should get 2 games, I suppose. No.
Yes.
So they're selling the spot in line, but you still have to pay the rest of the game as well.
Right. Okay. So this is the deposit they put down. This is effectively what they're selling. Right.
Yes, and their spot in line, and but there's over a dozen, I would say, being offered right now, which I'm not so sure is a good sign.
No, I would agree with you if that's the case. Yes, that's probably the bit I was talking about just now, where people were a bit underwhelmed when they first saw it and decided to bail. But it's a non-refundable deposit, but it can be transferred, I guess.
Right. Okay. So anyway, I figured that mention that briefly. So let's move on to the no news section.
Well, we'll start with your neighbours, Dutch Pinball, and you've been in touch with Barry, and what's he got to say?
Well, we briefly texted today. I asked whether there was any news, and basically he said the sourcing of parts is improving, and he's hoping to scale up production soon.
Okay, well, I'm sure he is. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I've been hoping for that for years. So, but that's the news that I got. So I'll just share that with you and take it for whatever you think it's worth.
Well, I mean, sourcing of parts is obviously a problem, but it was interesting that one of the things to come out of the Pinball Expo seminars, and I forget exactly which seminar it was in that I was hearing. It might have been George's one, but
I think it was Gary Stern actually mentioning that they had a problem. Some of their games use a chip that is also used by Ford Motors.
Yeah, for the F-150 truck.
Yeah, something like that. And that makes it for them impossible to get or to source those chips. So they are building games that don't use that chip.
Yeah, but he also said that they kind of preempted this supply chain problem, or at least they saw it coming and took steps to try and mitigate it by renting out a warehouse and stockpiling the common parts they're going to be needing. So they bought all that, and they got I can't remember exactly how many they said, but they think they've got enough parts to keep going. And
well, that also explains why they are rerunning Elvira, I suppose.
I'm not sure how many unique parts there are in that game, but obviously they were saying how difficult it is to get parts from suppliers, but they think they're in a good situation with their stocks.
I think Ford can make a fortune if they start selling chips.
Yeah, fortunately, they also have to make cars and trucks, so which need them. So,
oh well.
Yeah.
So, Multimorphic.
Yeah, I haven't really had any news from Multimorphic.
Other than Jerry being at Pinball Expo. I don't think he did a seminar this year.
No, I don't think he did. No, they did have a big selection of P-Rock based homebrew games there, which would obviously tie in well with the American Dream competition, because of course American Pinball are also using P-Rock still on their games, and although they have stated their intention to move away from that in due course, there's no sign of that happening just yet. So I'm assuming, didn't hear it for sure, but when Legends of Valhalla was developed, it wasn't developed on P-Rock, but it was ported over to the American Pinball system, or maybe it was developed on P-Rock, but using P-Rock, using Multimorphic driver boards, and American Pinball had their own, have some of their own driver boards, so the code for that and the drivers for that had to be rewritten for the American Pinball system. So that's probably what went on there. But no, that homebrew section at using P-Rock games or using the P-Rock system at the Pinball Expo could well be where the winner of the American Dreams competition comes from. So if you've got a chance to play those, you may be one step ahead when it comes to seeing what the next American Pinball title is going to be.
But isn't it going to, I mean, if you develop a game on the P3 system, would American Pinball be able to take that into production? I suppose they could, but it's not going, they don't have like the cabinet for the P3 in their arsenal, so I'm not sure whether that would work. Although it's very likely that a third party or an outside party starts developing kits for P3 as well. Doesn't have to necessarily be Multimorphic, of course. No.
Well, I mean, other companies have certainly produced software games for it.
Right. But they might as well produce hardware kits.
Yeah, no reason why not. As long as it's got the manufacturing capability, or can work with Multimorphic to manufacture it for them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But I rather don't see anybody coming up with P3 designs and so on, because that will look my entry look rather pale, I suppose, or stale. What's the word?
Okay.
Oh well. So I don't encourage encourage anybody to bring their best game. No, please don't. No.
So leave it clear for you to win. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
I'm sure. That will everyone will heed your advice and turn up with an empty box.
Okay, so maybe this is speaking of this American Dream contest. Maybe this is something to consider for Pinball Adventures. Just take their Punny Factory prototype to Pinball Expo next year, and maybe American Pinball will do the manufacturing.
But why would they do that? Because a new video from Pinball Adventures that came out this month shows all their manufacturing capabilities. It showed their office, their test area, and manufacturing facilities for cutting plastic, metalwork, wood. Of course, what wasn't said was that we think all those were, certainly the industrial side of it were contract manufacturers who are doing work for Pinball Adventures in producing parts for them and constructing assemblies. But that's not obviously their only job because, you can't buy a punny factory at the moment, even if you wanted to. So they wouldn't survive very long with no sales. But it was kind of presented as Andrew going around the various factories as if they were his and saying, this is where we produce this is where we produce that. And whereas in fact, I don't know, it seemed a bit odd anyway, put it that way. If you want to see it for yourself, you can go to the Pinball Adventures website, and actually you can't go to the website because the website's down.
Is that back online? No, it's not.
No, you can watch it on YouTube. Yeah, it was on YouTube. You can certainly watch it on YouTube. I think we mentioned before they had those videos still available on there. There's no indication of the availability of the game or what its eventual price is going to be. There were some other shots in the design area which showed a little bit of the Elements game, which was slated to be their second title, and which seemed to have a completely different display and cabinet design to Punny Factory, which seems odd. You'd think if you were starting off with a new company, you'd have some commonality, at least in the cabinet. But no, that was very different. It had the display and speakers were actually in a top box, not actually in the back box, which is maybe not exactly where you'd want to have your display. But there you go. The back box was just a complete piece of artwork and with no display in it at all. The third game was also glimpsed, or a third game was also glimpsed. I couldn't quite see what it was, but it was also in another different design of cabinet. So, but they did have a display in the back box at least.
Okay, so they're not making it easy on themselves.
No, I mean maybe these are just prototype ideas, and they'll pick one and go with it when they actually start producing. But for now, interesting, but a lot of promotion, a lot of self-promotion, and but no indication of actually anything being available yet.
Right. Okay. Moving on to Pinball Brothers, based in Europe, manufacturing in Italy.
Yeah, no news other than the fact they're still churning out aliens, either in the standard version or the limited version.
Right,
and they are being delivered.
And the Queen prototype still being on display in the Queen pop-up store, I suppose.
It is. It's still in London. It's going to be there until, basically after Christmas. So the start of January is when it will be there. It was interesting. There was another pop-up store just appeared just around the corner, which is a David Bowie pop-up store. Right? So I haven't seen anything about that. Previously, there was a Who one, which that was a couple of years ago. Yeah, exactly. And they had a Tommy game in there. Right. But as there's no David Bowie game, sadly no pinball in the David Bowie pop-up shop.
Well, the David Bowie game could be cool.
Yeah, plenty of material to work with there. Anyway, moving on to a company where we do have some news.
I can just see the stabs of Let's Dance. Every time you make a shot, I can see that work. So, oh well.
Good for homebrew.
So, yeah. So, maybe here's a suggestion for someone to enter the American Dream Contest. Do a David Bowie pin. So, I suppose, sort of last but not least, we haven't discussed Jersey Jack Pinball yet. I suppose the most interesting news from Jersey Jack Pinball was that they hired a fourth pinball designer in the person of Mark Seiden, who is a known designer in the homebrew community. He's been working on a game called Metroid, which was also on display at Pinball Expo. But prior to Pinball Expo, Jersey Jack already announced that they hired him. So probably to avoid anybody else, any other manufacturers scooping Mark away. So
interesting. There's obviously a trend developing here, with Jack Danger developing his homebrew machine and being snapped up by Stern, Riot Pinball team developing their homebrew game getting snapped up by American.
Keith Elwin was
Keith
the first.
Elwin, did Archer, with his brother Randy, get snapped up by Stern, and now Mark has done his Metroid game, and he's been snapped up by Jersey Jack.
Right,
So,
and
that seems to be the way into the business.
Yeah,
Josh Kugler, of course. Yeah, good point. Did the Kugler family, amongst others, and did a follow-up game as well. Yeah. So he's that's your route into pinball business if that's what you want to do. I think prove you can design a game and build it and see it through to conclusion, and that's how you get in.
Right, and congratulations to Mark for landing this job.
Absolutely.
I mean, what's very interesting, I think, from the perspective of a junior game designer like Mark, coming into a country, being able to be mentored by both Pat Lawler and Steve Ritchie, I don't think it doesn't get any better than that.
Well, and Eric, of course, as well, who's now got quite a lot of experience developing games and knows the electronics inside out as well.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
What a great position. And it was a bit strange though, because I didn't get any sort of press release from Jersey Jack Pinball about that at all.
No, me neither. I think we pissed off somebody over there, and it was on their Facebook, and we noticed it. So. Happy to bring you the news. Happy for Mark to be on board at the team, but you'd expect a press release for news like that. Although it might still be, I think it could be 2 years before we see Mark's first game being taken into production at the current pace, and that's not a stab at JJP, but we're still waiting to see whenever their next title will be announced, and they're as it looks right now, they're probably busy building Guns N' Roses at least until March of next year, or maybe even summer next year. So who knows? They can set up a second assembly line. We'll just have to wait and see. But if you wanted to announce anything, then I suppose Pinball Expo was a good place to do it, and I don't think they discussed anything of a timeline for when the next game will be available.
Well, I think they have got some history of announcing a game or their next title at the Midwest Gaming Classic. That's certainly happened in the past. I can't remember which game it was, whether it was Wonka. No, it wasn't Wonka. Yeah, it was Wonka, wasn't it?
No. Wonka was simultaneously at MGC and in Europe as well. Yes.
Yes. So they have revealed games at MGC in the past. So and as MGC is taking place this coming weekend, who knows? Perhaps we might see the next game there.
That was when MGC was taking place in April, and now MGC is taking place in November. So that might be a difference.
Yeah, but if the timing is right, they've certainly worked with Dan and the team at MGC to do a launch like that in the past. So it wouldn't be new ground for them. Although the time of year, as you say, is different. Right. But anyway, so apart from Mark being appointed as their newest member of the design team, and again, congratulations to him, JJP. Have been, I think we mentioned this before about, maybe we didn't, I think we did, about teaming up with Scorbit. Yes, we certainly have mentioned that in the past. And and they've introduced their achievements system into the JJP games. And we will talk a little bit more about that soon. But
as in a couple of minutes. Yeah. But the news here is that apparently JJP and Scorbit recorded a video together, which they published, explaining how the achievements work and so on. And you can watch that on YouTube. And if you receive the Pinball Magazine monthly newsletter, there will be a link in there linking you to that video, as well as to other videos discussed earlier in this PINcast, of course. So that was sort of the news that there is this video. And of course, we have this interview coming up with the people from Scorbit in a couple of minutes. So stay tuned for that because that includes more info on how it works on JJP games as well.
Okay, but other than that, there's been some code updates, of course. No month would be complete without them.
Mostly related to those achievements, which there are code updates for various games: Guns N' Roses, Dialed In, Wizard of Oz, and Hobbit. So almost all JJP titles received a code update implementing achievements with Scorbit, which is nice.
It was interesting because the Hobbit had been asking for some updates for that, but all of them, in addition to the implementation of the Achievements Award, they've also had some bug fixes and other tweaks to the game and to the core code as well to make it doesn't actually specify exactly what they are, but maybe if there's only some little niggles in the game which have been annoying over the years, then maybe they've got fixed in the latest update as well. But anyway, nice to see all of them getting some love, all the way from Wizard of Oz up to Guns N' Roses, all getting the achievements from Scorbit added.
Yeah, there was one thing I noticed in the code update for Dialed In that sort of raised my eyebrows. The Dialed In mobile app is no longer supported from this new version forward. Obviously, that was something that when the game was announced, that was certainly something that they showed off, and was certainly one of the important features on the game, but no more.
Yeah, it was a world first to be able to flip the ball, use the flippers from the phone. It's a bit disappointing that's been taken out. I don't know why that is. Whether there's some security violations now, which means that they're not allowed to do that anymore. But I originally thought, maybe now they've added the Scorbit stuff in. They've had to take out the Bluetooth connection and replace it with a Wi-Fi one. But of course, they also allow the connection of Bluetooth headphones to the game as well. So which you can access by holding in the right flipper button in a track mode, and that requires a Bluetooth dongle to be connected. So, its Bluetooth connections are still there. So I don't know why the mobile app is not supported anymore. But it was kind of it seemed like a bit of a one and done thing, that it was there and it did what it did, and it wasn't going to be developed any further. But I suppose they can at least claim to have been the first to implement such a thing, no matter how practical it was to actually use it. Right.
Okay. And closing off with Jersey Jack Pinball news, I suppose. Pat Lawler did a seminar on Pinball Expo, which I seriously thought was probably I haven't seen all of them yet, but I was watching this and I was like, this is pure gold. Pat was really on fire. It was really a very interesting seminar where he dove into his 41-year career in coin-op, digging up stories and details that I was not aware of. So pure gold. Thank you, Pat, from the bottom of my heart.
I thoroughly recommend that you go to the link either on the Pinball Magazine site or the Pinball News site and watch Pat Lawler's seminar. Of all the ones, I think it's probably, well, from a historical point of view, it's certainly the most interesting one of the entire show. It's kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum from all the new game design teams telling you how they produce their games now, to go back and see how games used to be produced and the interactions between various companies, including court cases and how Williams were poised to get out of pinball altogether in 1983 if they hadn't won a patent case against Dave Nutting Associates, who held the patent for the use of microprocessors to control a pinball machine. Fortunately, it was they made some mistakes in the court case, and that patent was overruled, and Williams carried on in pinball. But it was touch and go at that point, as it had been for many companies at various points in their history. But Pat knows it all, and he relates it in a very interesting and accessible way. So yeah, go and listen to it if you haven't already, or go and watch him.
Yeah. So also, what I found interesting, that was in the Jersey Jack seminar, which is a different seminar. That was the evening after the Pat Lawler seminar, where Pat made a comment where he basically said, like, he got the feeling that people were expecting him and Steve Ritchie to be bitter enemies or something like that, and apparently they are best friends, or at least now.
Okay,
So,
good. Yeah. Well, I think that's been probably goes back to the days at Williams, where I think it was very much described as having design team gangs, and if you weren't in one gang, you were hated by all the other gangs. So,
I call that healthy inner competition inside the company.
It can be healthy. It can be destructive as well if it goes too far.
Well, yeah, I think it drove the teams to try to outdo the others, which some say killed pinball, but it's also
it's great for us as players.
Yes, it resulted in a lot of innovative features that otherwise we might never have seen. So. Yeah.
So anyway, that's.
It's
an interesting point, though. But you're right. I think a lot of people did assume that there was that rivalry between them, and it's great if that's not the case. So let's move on to any other news. And now we mentioned that we weren't at Pinball Expo, but despite that fact, it still seemed to take place. And MGC is also taking place, as we say, this coming weekend, and we won't be there either, if you're wondering why.
We were supposed to be there and do our quiz. And
we were supposed to be at MGC. We were meant to be at Expo covering all that as well. But the simple fact is...
you, but we were bound to be in Europe by the authority of a certain Joe Biden. Have you heard of him?
Name's familiar, but I can't place it. But anyway, the point is we're not allowed to fly to the United States until the 8th of November, unless it was for urgent business. And it's hard to swing that one for us. So the point is we couldn't be there.
Yeah, Stefan Riedler, the Austrian importer for many companies, was
RS
actually
Pinball.
RS Pinball managed to fly to the US, and he was at Expo. So I applaud him for doing that. I hope he had a great time. It was one of the very few if not the only European, I suppose.
I think there's somebody from Spain also went over there, but I don't know exactly who that was. But you're right. It was certainly devoid of most European visitors this year, and neither of us nor our good friend Gary Flower were able to head over there. Which, for him, it must be particularly galling because he'd been to every Pinball Expo up until this point. Yeah, well, and this was the 37th.
I did have a funny moment in the chat at one of the days of Pinball Expo on the Twitch channel, where Gary in the UK as a username popped up, and I responded, "Is that you, Gary?" And indeed, it was Gary.
Yes, I was actually watching that chat at the time as you were posting it. Because I'd already spoken to Gary, and he said, "Oh, my username on the chat is Gary in the UK." I said, "Oh, right, okay." And I told him what mine was, Pinball News, I think. And So then, to see him posting and then you asking if it was him was quite funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we couldn't go to that. We can't go to the Midwest Gaming Classic, which is this weekend, as we say. Maybe Toy Story or whatever the next JJP game is will be announced there. We'll, if it is, we'll be reporting on it, obviously, at that point. Now, as I said, can't fly to America until the 8th of November. But I'm heading off that way on the 10th of November.
Well, yeah,
So
sure, rub it in.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't go to Expo and I couldn't go to MDC, and it wouldn't be the same without all of us going there. So I'm going to the Houston Arcade Expo.
Okay,
which
IAPA
is,
as well?
Then hopping over to IAPA for a quick flying visit into there for one day only, and then heading up to Pintastic, New England, where Gabe and Dave Marston there have invited me up there to do a seminar, and I think I'm interviewing Jack Guarneri, Jersey Jack. Remember him? Yes.
Yeah.
I think I'm doing a fireside chat.
I think I have
him.
a question for Jack.
Okay.
I'll tell you later.
I bet you have, yes. Okay, but that's my itinerary. So I should be reporting from some three shows I've never been to before, so that should be nice. And but before that, I actually went to a trade show, not exactly IAPA size, but a little one in London, the autumn auction.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how was that?
Pretty boring, I have to admit. It's a pretty small event. There's not a huge demand for new equipment in autumn. Going into winter when a lot of sort of seasonal locations are closed for the winter. But there were 3 pinball machines there, which was nice, including the first appearance in the UK of Godzilla. So I got to get to play that quite a bit.
And
3 games, and it was only a pro. But I thought it was really nice. I really enjoyed it. I thought it played very well, and the rules seemed to be reasonably understandable as well, which was nice. It took a bit of coaching. I met Gary there, Gary Flower, and he played it a couple of times before, so he was able to give me a few hints. And played that. And next to it was an Avengers, I think. There was also Led Zeppelin there, which was what was it? It was a premium, I think. I think it was a premium, but unfortunately, it was on somebody else's stand that was demonstrating contactless or cashless payments. So a bit like Pay Range, but it's one that's designed by the industry for the UK, and so it was really just there to show how you can use your phone to put a credit on a pinball machine, and it wasn't actually playable, which was a shame, but there you go. So a fun little show, obviously a report on Pinball News, but the first time going to that one as well, so it's nice to see how that compares to the big show that we'll all be going to, you,
hopefully, yes,
me and Gary, in January at the Excel Centre in London.
If you get the latest COVID beast.
Yes. Yeah, quite. Assuming no more lockdowns come along. But anyway, those are my plans anyway for the next, this month actually. Now we're in October. Oh, we're in November rather. And so you'll be hearing all about it in the next podcast.
Right. Okay. So, the next podcast will be called Martin's Travels.
Yeah, I'll be coughing and spluttering because I'll probably come back with some kind of illness. Hopefully not the big one.
Right. Okay. So, but we're not done yet.
No.
As we mentioned at the beginning of our of this PINcast, we did an interview with Ron and Jay from Scorbit. Thank you for that. And I think it's very interesting. It's a bit lengthy, but it was interesting enough that I didn't want to take anything out. So you get the full, unedited, uncensored version basically the entire thing,
including a special guest appearance by my dog as well.
Oh, was it your dog?
Yes, that's my dog. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so Martin's dog is making a guest appearance. It's quite unusual. Usually we have Gary popping up doing guest appearances, but not this case. Sorry. But I suggest that we, before we start that interview, let's say goodbye now and then do the interview with Scorbit, and we hope that you will tune in next month for the highlights of November.
Yes,
from the pinball industry.
Indeed, we hope you've enjoyed this wrap of what happened in October, and we'll see you next month for the November PINcast. And as I say, we'll leave you in the capable hands of our interview with Ron and Jay from Scorbit, who will tell you all about the system and how it works with the various manufacturers and what you can do with it and where they're going with it. So it's quite an expansive interview.
Okay. Thank you and bye.
Bye. We are now joined by Ron Richards and Jay Adelson, who are two of the three founders of the Scorbit platform. And they're here to tell us basically how the system works and what they've been doing with it, the new features they're adding, and where they're going to be taking it in the future. So welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Yeah. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having us. Big fans.
Thanks. Well, I suppose we better start with, for those of people who are
have been living under a rock for years.
Exactly. Yeah. I want to tell us a little bit, just a brief summary of what Scorbit is and what does it add to a game for someone who owns their own machine and have been enjoying it up until now, but think maybe they can add something to it. And what would Scorbit do for that?
Well, I got to say, it's funny to hear you say, like, for those who've been living under a rock for years, because I mean, while that's really flattering, I feel like we have a ton of work to get the word out about Scorbit to everyone who plays pinball. So we appreciate the opportunity. But yeah, at its heart, Scorbit is basically we sum it up as connected pinball, and what that basically means is that we've built a device called the Scorbitron that allows you to connect your pinball machine to the internet. If it is not a modern machine like from Jersey Jack or Stern, now Stern, who enable Wi-Fi, but you could take a pinball machine from the 80s, a solid-state pinball machine, and put our device in it and be able to connect it to the internet and have the scores load automatically up to the Scorbit platform, and then use the Scorbit app to keep track of your scores, challenge your friends to beat your score. We just recently rolled out a new achievements platform, so you can we can create new ways for you to interact with pinball. Sure. And all in all, it's just a way to make pinball more fun and connect all of us more together than just all being at the same arcade or at the same show like Pinball Expo or a tournament. You guys in Europe, we could connect via Scorbit, and we can challenge each other and try to beat each other's scores and things like that. Okay. And what's also great is that it's the Scorbit mobile app is for use on any pinball machine. It doesn't require our hardware. So if you want a way to keep track of your high scores, connect with friends, see what scores your friends are getting, things like that, Scorbit is a great way to connect players together. Jay, did I miss anything there?
Okay. No, I think you got it. I mean, we sort of see the reason we call it a platform is because when you connect machines, whether they're old or brand new, to the internet, and then you also have this app, there's a whole variety of applications that you can do with that relationship. The one that I think comes immediately to mind is, of course, all of the social elements. But we have this other set of products called Scorbit Vision, which is just visualizations of this data in different ways, things for streamers or for, a big game room or over a bar. Mm-hmm. And I think, and we have this API, which is basically, it's a programming interface that allows anyone to create these applications on our platform. And so, we see a day where there's lots of third-party and really interesting ideas that come up that we at Scorbit may never have thought of. Right,
I see. So, before we go any further with that, what what are your backgrounds as far as technology goes, and also as far as pinball or arcade history goes? Were you into all this before it started, and you were desperately looking for a way to achieve what you've done?
Yeah, it's like the work stuff and the fun stuff. So Jay, you've got a much better resume than I, so why don't you go?
That's not true, but I'm a sort of a addicted entrepreneur. I've started 15 or 16 startups in my career, and I started as I founded a company called Equinix, which is the largest data center company in the world. I started and I ran companies like Revision 3, which was the first internet television network, which I did with Ron, which is how I met Ron, which is fantastic. I also, I spent a great deal of time on consumer stuff with Dig, which is DIGG, which was a social news website where I was CEO for I don't know how long, half a decade, 6 years. And I've done a bunch of internet infrastructure companies. If you've ever heard of New Relic, they bought their infrastructure product is a company that I started years ago. And anyway, but more importantly than all of that is that I'm a child of the 80s. And, I grew up with arcades.
Yeah. Of course.
I'd say there were the two nerdiest possible things that I added to that was I was a telecommunications nerd as a kid. And I'm sure that everybody out there who has ever, who grew up at the same age as me knows the type. I was always online from age probably 8 until, today. And so for me, connected platforms and all of my stuff, it's a similar thread. And I think, Ron, you had a very similar.
Yeah, very, very similar. In fact, actually, the first time Jay and I ever met, I was wearing a T-shirt with a RF converter design screen print on it, like the thing that I used to connect my television to my TV.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. And so Jay instantly was like, "Man, we're gonna be friends." And so that was kind of a good moment. But yeah, no, similar to Jay, I went to school for television film, and have always been in front of a computer. I think my dad put me in front of an Apple II Plus when I was like 5. So I've always been in front of a computer. Was online as soon as I could. I think the first time I got online was like 1994, when everything had a gray background. And thought I wanted to be a filmmaker and make TV because I love that aspect of entertainment. But then as the 90s went along, I saw there was a lot of money over there with the internet, and that was stuff that I could do pretty easily. So I pursued a career in the internet and kind of fell into doing a lot of kind of marketing stuff and business development stuff, but also mainly content and community building. I actually in my spare time started a website all about comic books called iFanboy, and that led to a podcast, which is now we launched that podcast in 2005, and it's the #1 all-time podcast about comic books according to Apple, which is a great honor to have.
Wow.
And then from that, I was able to leverage, the stuff I did digitally with my interest in comics and pop culture. And I worked at Image Comics and worked for a couple other places and fun stuff like that. I was living in San Francisco for 10 years, and Jay was also in the Bay Area. And our third co-founder, Brian O'Neill, was in the Bay Area. And we all worked together at Revision 3 and Dig and things like that. And across the street from my apartment was a bar with a Medieval Madness. And me and Brian were hanging out one night and got drunk and played that pinball machine all night. And it was like the first time that I figured out, like, oh wow, if you hit that thing, this thing happens. And oh wait a minute, this is how you get multi-ball. Like it was like an amazing night where it all kind of like I knew what pinball was, but I didn't get the rules. I didn't get the complexity of it until that night when Brian and I were trying to hack. And actually, Brian's wife was there, Allison. We were trying to hack it. Basically, we were trying to figure out how to get the best score. And from that moment, we were just hooked, and we just started going from bar to bar in San Francisco to play pinball, not knowing that the Bay Area had such a great legacy of pinball, great history going back to the 90s, right? And we, I remember just searching online, I discovered that there was a pinball league forming. And so Brian, Allison, and myself all joined, and we were amongst the founding members of the San Francisco Pinball Department, which is a huge league in San Francisco that's still going. That's awesome. And Andre Mazenkov was in the league. Yeah. and some other great players. And
Neil Schatz, I guess, would have been there as well.
Yeah, no, this is after Neil Schatz. Oh, geez, I wish I could have played with Neil Schatz. This is like 2015 or so, maybe.
Oh, right, okay, that recent.
And at that time, you would see the NES initials, and it was like, Neil Schatz has been here, right? Like it was. He became more of a legend at that point. But that's how I learned. That's how we learned to play pinball. Learned all the game rules and things like that. Started going to show. First, we started going to California Extreme, and then ultimately Indisc, and then went to Pinburg, and was like, oh my god, this is amazing, and just loved what we were doing. And that kind of ties into the foundation of Scorbit, because it was actually we were playing at Free Gold Watch in San Francisco, where the San Francisco Pinball League would play, and I was playing with one of my friends, and he was playing Stern Trek, and he kicked my ass. He had a really great game, and he got all excited and was like, wow, I think that's my highest score ever. And he took out his phone and opened up a text file, and I looked over his shoulder, and he had a list of game names and a score next to them, and he scrolled down until he found Stern Trek, and then deleted his score and typed in hhis new score, and then put his phone back in his pocket and went to play the next game. And I just went, oh, god damn it, that's a good idea, right? So at that point, I tend to have, and Jay, I think you suffer from this too, have a tendency to turn our hobbies and interests into work. And so at that point, I was really, really excited about the idea of making an app to keep track of your scores. And at that time, I don't think Pindigo was out yet. And at that time, it seemed like it was a real no-brainer. Just make an app that would keep track of your scores. And it was actually at California Extreme when I was telling Jay the idea. Jay said, yeah, that's cool, but what if we put a device in the machine that made it you didn't have to type the score in at all? And from there, we're off to the races. That was that, and then Scorbit was born, and then it became how many years, Jay? Like 5 years of hardware development and trying to figure out how to do that.
I mean, honestly, that was right around 2015. So it's been close to 7 years since we started that idea, which is really kind of crazy when you think about it. I don't think anybody in their right mind would have created Scorbit. We're obviously
that's what a little alcohol helps.
Yes. Well, it was funny because I remember being at Pinball League and talking to one of our friends, this guy Darren Ensley, who's big in the Bay Area pinball area, and I was like, yeah, no, there's got to be a way to either, we're talking about how to do it, and he's like, well, sure, you could do that if you can figure it out, but why would you? And like it kind of got dismissed as kind of like a hobbyist, kind of hackery kind of thing, but
I like problems like that.
Yeah.
I mean, But what Ron is, he articulates way better than me is just that these things kind of take over. You don't point like to a point on a timeline and say, eureka moment. It's like suddenly you don't remember it not having been an obsession.
Yes, I can certainly empathize with that. So you've got this idea, the grand idea, you're going to get the scores out of machines. Now, I'm sure anybody who looked at that says, how on earth are you going to do that? Because there are so many different machines out there. They all present scores in different ways. They all have different board sets and operating systems. There's no commonality amongst them, not even amongst manufacturers. They change their systems over time as well. So it's a big technical challenge as to how you actually are going to do this. Now, when I first saw it, I thought, oh, I see what you're doing. You're sniffing the video, and then you're doing sort of optical character recognition on it and trying to work out where the scores are and where the player number is and the ball number and all that kind of stuff. But that itself, just saying it like that makes it sound easy, but it's not, of course. It's a very complex problem. I mean, where do you start when you decide what you want to do? Where's your starting point?
Well, I say you're right. It's a huge complex problem. The number of machines and manufacturers make it complex, and also like that is a way to do it, but that's not the only way, and that's not the only way we do it across all the. Like we basically part of it was looking at each machine and figuring out what's the best way to make this happen, and so it's breaking down the problem and seeing what gives us the most flexibility in terms of accessing the score data and integrating it, but then also something to consider, at least with the hardware, is how do you do that in an affordable device that can be sold at a price that people can afford.
Right, that's right.
Right.
Yeah,
So if you don't mind me asking a technical question, so you have this Scorbitron device which the owner of a machine puts in the game, and there are, I assume, but correct me if I'm wrong, there must be different ways to connect your game to the Scorbitron, or do you have different Scorbitron boards for each type of different machine or
Sure.
brand, or
Yep.
It's so you're asking the right question. We actually are able. So I have to take one step back, because understand that in order for any of this to work, you have to find the commonalities, starting with the cloud service, the actual infrastructure in the internet part. Let's assume for the moment that that's the same and has the same capabilities no matter what the source of data is, right?
Right.
So once you have that, and by the way, that is not trivial. In some ways, that's harder than the hardware. Then what you have to do is you have to find the commonalities between all machines. And those commonalities tend to be things like the display, like you mentioned, or a CPU, like the 6809 Motorola CPU. And you define a specification, and you figure out how you're going to get that data off the machine. And then we build the Scorbitron itself, which can take inputs from all of these different types. So the Scorbitron has 4 ports on it, and you can plug into those ports different kinds of probes or serial connections. The most common, classic example is we have a small piece of electronics called a DMD probe that's designed to work on any DMD. And then that connects with a cable to the Scorbitron. But in the case of a Stern Spike 2, for example, you would use a USB serial cable, or in the case of a Bally or a Stern, MPU 100, 200, or 35 board from the late 70s, early 80s, we have another probe called the Solid State 1 probe that actually sits on the display bus. And the magic here is it all gets converted ultimately to the same kind of, we call them frames, but basically it all gets converted to one common type of data. And then the Scorbitron interprets that data and then sends it to our cloud service. So there are a lot of parts. And then of course, if you install on a pinball machine from, 1995, or if you install on a pinball machine from 1977, we had to accommodate all these different power situations. So we also developed small pieces of electronics that are designed to take the power somewhere, the correct place, and feed it into the Scorbitron so we can turn it all on.
Right.
And so when a customer or a user wants to get one of these things, they just tell us what pinball machine it is. If it's Medieval Madness, we know that's a WPC. It's going to need this type of power adapter. It's going to need this type of data cable. It's going to need a DMD probe, and of course the Scorbitron. Now, if you've got a Jersey Jack game or a game that has a direct API connection, you actually need nothing other than Wi-Fi connectivity
And an account on Scorbit to log into.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So this might be a little bit off topic, but then again not. You mentioned 1977, which actually was like around the time when electromechanical machines were abandoned and solid state machines took over. I assume Scorbit doesn't work on electromechanical games?
It technically, well, as Ron said, you can post any score you want, using the app manually. But
Right.
we do not have an electromechanical interface, and it's actually kind of funny because at every expo and every user group, we have someone who's come up to us and said, "I have a way to do this." Right?
And so do we.
Yeah, we know how to do it,
I could think of. I mean, there's actually several ways to do it. It's just whether or not for us, because we're building a business here, whether or not the research and development into building the hardware to do it is justified by the number of people who would buy it. Someday I would like us to do it just purely to be the one to say that we can work on every pinball machine. But right now, while we all love our EMs, the market is much bigger for moderns and DMD machines and things like that. So,
oh, you got a point there. You got to run a sustainable business first, I suppose.
Yeah,
so.
but we've had again over drinks several conversations about you can put a camera in the back box or you can install a counter. Like there's a bunch of different ways to do it, and someday we'll get there. I hope so, Jay, at least.
Yeah,
and I may or may not be secretly working on that.
He loves to solve problems. I'm telling you.
True.
Sounds fascinating. Now. We talk about the Scorbitron board, okay? So, and as you said, we tell you which game we're going to fit it into, and you supply the appropriate probes to go with that and power supply hookups. Now, that is a fixed price it's a fixed price for the board, but there's also an ongoing subscription for that.
That's right.
Now, something which seems strange to me is if I'm running the Scorbitron system on a Jersey Jack pinball machine, for instance, I get all the same functionality, but there's no subscription for that. So why is there a charge for one and not for the other when you're utilizing the same service?
No, it's an excellent question, and I think a lot of it has to do with this concept of platform as a service, right? And when you're building a business like this and you look at the relative costs of maintaining a user, sort of the blended cost of that, and you are maintaining a device, even though the customer owns the device, right? The firmware, the monitoring, the management of that device, you have to kind of blend into that whole world, that cost. And the beauty of what Jersey Jack did and what you'll see from some other manufacturers soon is that, they're really taking on a lot of that effort for us because they are, in fact, building the network stack on top of that platform. And that is a really, it makes our life a lot easier. I mean, I think that's one piece. And I think the other piece is that, we look at it as a license, and we have these two license types, a standard license type and a pro license type. Mm-hmm. If we could give it away, the standard away to everybody, if the cost of maintaining those Scorbitrons was zero, then we would happily, be one of those freemium style services. But we think that, the $3-4 a month or the $40 a year standard pricing, so far, our users have been more than happy to help us with that. And that may change in the future. And then you have this other whole, really it's an entirely different business model around the pro services.
Yeah, we'll come to that in a minute. But I was just speaking from personal opinion and being somebody who's very tight with the money I spend on my games. I don't mind spending $300 on a board to go in the back, but if it's sitting there, if it's winter and the games are in the garage and the games are not getting played, I don't want to be paying money every month for a service I'm not using. So,
which is fair, and something that we've heard from other users. I mean, it could say, it could maybe motivate you to go play your game some more. But
absolutely, yeah, it could do. But I'd rather pay an extra $100 up front and not have to pay a subscription.
We've heard that.
That's what it takes.
We've heard that a lot, and weighing it out. The concept of the lifetime subscription. And we looked at other companies that have tried that in the past, like I don't know if you're familiar with TiVo and these other companies that did like lifetime subscriptions, and the math on that really depends on how low you can get the hardware, believe it or not. So I think that if we can get to the point where the hardware is relatively trivial and inexpensive, which, by the way, we think we can, we would rather flip it around the other way and say, buy a lifetime subscription, right? And get the hardware for free. It is not. We're a small enough business that we don't, and we're not venture backed. We don't have some billionaire financier to let us go for a decade. But once we get our costs to deliver the service down enough, I think that we can start to experiment with some of these different models, like a lifetime subscription and free hardware. Free hardware is my dream. That's what I want to get to. Cool. Because I hate hardware. It's not my favorite thing.
You're not hardware guys. You're not a manufacturing facility. But I'm bearing in mind all the time that you are running a business here, and and needs to be a revenue stream from somewhere, and you have ongoing charges in order to maintain and develop the platform. So
exactly. I mean, it's a keeping the lights on kind of thing. Because as great as it is. We've built a cloud-based platform that requires maintenance and has charges and and all that sort of stuff. And so, but again, like we said, our approach hasn't been a hobbyist kind of thing where we made this thing kind of no, we really want to be a sustainable business in pinball because we love it and we think that we have a lot to add to it. And ultimately, our main mission, our main goal is to make pinball more fun, promote pinball playing amongst communities, and just have everyone be connected through this game that we've all collectively been connected by ourselves and share that love. So, but it is a business, and so that there are realities that come with that. So
okay, well, you're not homebrew guys, but Jay will have seen this particularly when he's just been at Pinball Expo. But there is a big homebrew community out there building their own games. Now, how easy would it, or is it even possible, for these guys to hook their games into the Scorbit API?
It's actually not. Okay, well, let me be careful how I put this. For a developer who is used to working with APIs and is building something like a home pin, most of those guys who have done that, I would put into this category, would find our API relatively easy to use. And we have a number of home pin users who are in fact developing right now against our API, and we welcome anyone who wants to come and develop against that API to feel free. And our commitment there is, if we're not in the relative scope of our users, it's a small enough group that we are willing to allow anybody who connects that way to have an API connection and not have to pay for that standard license.
Right.
In the future, what I would like to do is I want to make that even easier. I want to get to a point where we have a piece of hardware that is so inexpensive that a home pin user would say, well, network stack, Scorbit will take care of that for this, inexpensive piece of hardware. But it really just depends. What's wonderful about the direct API integration is it really gives you a lot of control over, applying your creativity to that cloud experience. And so yeah, it is. We do have an open platform. It is our API is there for people to use. We have a Slack channel and a Discord channel where a lot of these people come to meet with us and ask questions, and we will be releasing a developer portal that makes a lot of this easier without having to ask us questions, directly. You'll be able to just go on and get your token and
And is that API a two-way API, in that if I decide I want to write a bit of code to pull down the scores for Medieval Madness and see who's got the top 100 scores in the world, I can do that, can I?
Yes, you can. And the Scorbit Vision platform, this I mentioned it earlier, which gives you the visualizations, that was written to be a reference example.
I see.
of using that data.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Ron and I talk about it all the time. We have seen some incredible stuff done by users over the years, frankly, better than we could do. And, during the dig days, we were one of the first open APIs. And the stuff that people created, animated, beautiful visualizations, trends, fantastic stuff that we could not have dreamed of. And I just know that that's in the future, particularly those Twitch streamers. Those guys come up with some
so creative, and so like they're making awesome stuff and ways to use the data and ways to when stuff happens in the game, things happen to the environment, so that's the kind of stuff that and Brian, or one of our co-founders, him and his wife stream from their house, and he's pushing us a lot to create this sort of stuff because he wants to use it. Like, so much of what we do at Scorbit is motivated by a personal, I want to do this, let's go build it, and more often than not, it comes from talking to other pinball players or pinball streamers or other developers. Another great example to the idea of this open platform is we're working very closely with Andreas from Match Play. And he's actually currently working on the Match Play tournament software, next version of it, and he's integrating Scorbit all throughout it to make scorekeeping easier. How many times have we been in a tournament where it's noisy and the person, the scorekeeper, writes the wrong score and it takes hours to get it fixed and things like that. If you have Scorbit enabled machines that can push the score directly to the tournament software, you have less chance of human error. We'll probably need to come up with other ways for people to earn free tickets into the tournament, because I know I've done that. I've score kept at games in order so I can get, that extra hour for scorekeepers and that sort of thing. But ultimately, having the scores be as accurate as possible is the goal for a tournament. And what's great is that Andreas is totally on the same page with us about the importance of an open platform, of open systems where, data can pass, whether it's from the Open Pinball database into Scorbit to Pinball Map to Match Play to all this sort of stuff. And really what we're hoping to build is just, what we're hoping to work with everyone in the pinball industry is to build a open platform that works for all manufacturers, all machines, all players, so that everyone benefits, because closed systems don't benefit anybody but the people who have closed the system. So, yeah.
Right. Now, Stern recently introduced their Insider Connected, which is a system to log scores if you have an account and so on. So I definitely see similarities. Is there any chance of a collaboration between Stern and Scorbit?
Well,
we'd love that.
Yeah, there certainly is a chance. We've approached Stern a number of times over the years. We love what they're doing. And by the way, I got a chance to use Insider Connected both at California Extreme and at Expo, and I really love what they're doing. George and Tanya and all those guys over there have really crushed it. And it is, as you point out, it's serving a lot of the from a score perspective and achievements. They've definitely created the content and the mechanism to interconnect that with Scorbit is an afternoon of work, and it's a choice. It's a choice that they really have to make internally if they think it makes sense for them. They know that we're open to it and would love to do that. I personally think that we could coexist extremely complementary, in a complementary way. Ron, maybe do you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. There's definitely, and what's funny is that I'm so glad that they rolled out that system, if anything, for our friends who are operators to get over the air updates to their machines, right? Because, that is just such a key thing to operators. So I'm glad that they are making this change. And like Jay said, the system is awesome. It looks like it's really great. It's a good solution for them. But at the end of the day, it's all there's nothing holding them back from connecting to our API and coexisting in the way that Jay said. We actually, when we started Scorbit, we reached out to a lot of to all the manufacturers to be like, hey, we exist, we want to work together. And we extended that offer to Stern. I'm pretty sure, Jay, before they started working on what they worked on. I mean, it was years ago at this point. And where we left off was like, great, doors always open. So they know where to find us. I'm friends with Zach Sharp, and we chat and working on other stuff on the side together. And so like we would welcome it. So, but their creation of the Insider connected system doesn't preclude the use of Scorbit or a Scorbitron on a Stern or on a modern Stern machine.
That's correct.
Kind of sits on top of their system.
Yep.
Yeah, we've used it with all games all the way up to Godzilla, and let me be honest, an operator does have to buy a Scorbitron, right, to do that, and that's kind of a bummer, because if you bought Stern Insider Connected and the machine is already connected to the internet, I mean, it should be like what Jersey Jack does, right? It should just be able to connect without having to do anything, or an API to API relationship where there's no machine to Scorbit relationship, but just their cloud service and our cloud service can talk with each other.
Yep.
All of these are options. I just want to make it as easy for the operator as possible. And so, yes, you can use our product in their product. I think that we have hundreds and hundreds of Stern Spike 2 customers out there who are already connected to Scorbit and heavily using the product, who, I think also want to use Insider Connected at the same time.
Yeah. Because the Scorbitron gives them more tools for live streams, for, like we mentioned, Twitch streamers and things like that. And that Stern has been pretty clear, and that's an area they don't want to get involved in. And so, there's definitely a world where we all can work together. So hopefully they are interested in embracing an open platform and letting everyone be connected.
Okay, so one of the things you mentioned about what Stern have done and about what you have done as well is the achievement system. Yep. Now that was something which, to me, sort of leapt up and said, "Oh, this is a sea change in what Scorbit means to me as a game owner who I've had my machines for a while. I know them well. I'm very happy with them, but this seems to add another level on top of the existing game. It's adding features to a game which I didn't think was ever going to get any more features. So that to me suddenly became a very interesting idea and could sell Scorbit to me. Now, can you explain how these achievements work? Which games have them or are going to have them, and how they integrate with the game itself? The game. If you know a game already, what differences are you going to see?
Ron, you want me to take this one?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, you've been so close to this stuff.
Yeah, well, a few years ago when we came up with we flow charted out, how achievements would function in the system, and started talking to manufacturers and game designers. There was one unifying principle about achievements, which was that they needed to be flexible to exist beyond just the single game. So we all have achievements that we achieve while we're playing, but the achievement itself and all of the logic behind it would need to have sort of greater superpowers around, other variables. So if you list them all out, we know the ones that we're familiar with, game modes and scores. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there are other things related to time and duration, the place you play, the specific machine you play, maybe the users you're playing against. Mm-hmm. There are so many different, or in the case of the Pinball Expo, we had an event-based achievement where if you played a game and hit a certain score at Expo, it knew you were at Expo. So we created all that logic in the cloud. We created a user interface that a game designer, someone like Eric Mounier or anyone, could go on there and basically create whatever they dream up. And once that logic exists, then it's a question of there's sort of a spectrum of how integrated you want to be with it. So in the case of Jersey Jack, they chose a full integration, which meant that as achievements happen, they appear on the screen. And, at the beginning of a game, when you claim a player slot, and I should point out that this is a really important aspect of why you need this app in the first place, is because you're attaching identity to a game.
Right from the start.
Right from the start. And that's a very important thing, because if you don't attach your identity at the beginning, then the system really doesn't have any way of knowing what you previously achieved. And so the game downloads what you've done already when you start, and may or may not, react to that information during the game. And then Scorbit takes care of the rest, because then what we're doing is we're sending you a push notification or adding the achievement to the profile. Now, you asked about what games have it. All of the Jersey Jack games already. I'm glad I'm not the only one with a dog, by the way. And all the Jersey Jack games, but we also, our commitment to JJP and this relationship, we wanted them to roll out all their achievements first, which is almost there. We're just about finished with that. And then we'll start rolling out DMD achievements next, and then we'll move to solid states. And the DMD achievements, one of the nice things about our hardware, and one of the reasons we designed it the way we did, is we can actually change what's on the DMD.
Yes.
So that
was a key thing that
Yep.
And we can actually show you the achievement as it's happening. And we can certainly, add that identity to what you see on the DMD, welcome, your last score was this score. And our Scorbitrons download all that information just like the Jersey Jack machine does. And then we'll process that data in real time. It's a lot.
I can see.
And just to add to it, because Jay quickly touched on it, but those event or location based achievements, when we sat down and set the achievement set, we're like, all right, you can get an achievement when you hit the wizard mode, or when you hit the wizard mode 10 times, or when you get this kind of multi-ball 10 times, but the location achievements are what I like. So I often play at Jack Bar in Brooklyn, and you can have the achievement of having the highest score on the Guns N' Roses at Jack Bar, that only I can have that achievement. And then there creates competition amongst the other players to win that achievement back from me. Right. And so, and it gives the operators and venue owners tools to better promote and market their games, and there's a reason to come to their place to play their game, because their location has the only you can only get this achievement at that arcade or at that bar.
Right, and this is something which an operator can set up, can they?
Correct.
Okay, right. That's part of the operator subscription.
Correct. Yeah. So an operator who's managing their machines on Scorbit, they can manage their, the locations that their machines are at, all the information that's in the Scorbit app, the price per game and all that sort of stuff. But then also be able to set up their own achievements and work with the venue to be like, okay, if somebody gets the Cactus Canyon King achievement for this bar, then give them a free drink, or have some sort of promotion tied to the achievement. Opportunities are pretty limitless there. So,
right. So does that also mean, obviously, players using this Scorbit app? Does it mean that, let's say, you have a high score at Jack Bar in Brooklyn, and someone else comes along, puts down a better score, would you get a notification like, hey, your high score has been knocked off, or something like that, and give you sort of an incentive to go back and to try to better your score? Or
Yes.
Exactly. Yes. Yep.
In fact, notifications, I never knew just the levels of complexity and the different, sort of sensitivities we needed to be very, very careful about with notifications. So yes, right now, when you open up the Scorbit app, you'll see in the settings there's a bunch of notification controls, because I follow 1,000 people on Scorbit. So Scorbit app, the way it works is, like things like Instagram and Twitter, you go on and you follow the people you're interested in, and then that is the context by which you would be notified. Mm-hmm. So if you think of it, there's two different things. There's the machine that someone gets the GC on, or they beat your score on. You might want notifications for that if anyone does that. But you might also really only care if your circle of friends, if somebody beat your score, or in your league, somebody beat your score. And this little nuance between sort of public and semi-public and private groups, we built the system to accommodate that. And so our first, notifications were designed around the high score or the top score. And we have this little button that we're waiting to push around, when your friends beat your high score. And one of the reasons why we didn't do that yet was partially the pandemic, because venues were closed, and we wanted a focus to be on that camaraderie, that competition between social groups. And then later, as people started going into public locations again, which is now starting again, really activate those other ones. And achievements is another example. In the achievement itself, in our definition of the achievement, the game designer gets to decide whether or not that achievement is worthy of a notification for all your followers or just yourself.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a control that the designer has, or the creator of the achievement. So you might say, well, most achievements, since everybody gets a certain percentage of them, really only matter to yourself. But if you get that crazy thing where you hit wizard mode, 17 times, or completed, Valinor on Lord
of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I want the entire planet to know that I've achieved that, and so anybody who follows me should see that, right? And so it's this new canvas on which to paint. And when I was talking to folks like Pat Lawler, and folks that have been involved for a long time, and the beauty of it is they were already thinking of these things for a long time. They were thinking of them, and it's sort of like the technology finally got to the point where they could express themselves this way. It's really exciting stuff.
Great. So, Scorbit is introduced currently included in Jersey Jack pinball machines. Does that mean that you have a hotline, so to speak, with the design team of a certain game to make sure that it's implemented correctly, or are they able to figure it out themselves and no need to assist them all the time?
We basically gave them the specification. I mean, obviously we're in regular communication with them, but we gave them the specification, told them how it worked. This is actually a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
right.
It's been in the works for a while. Yeah.
And we gave them all the specifications, said, here's how it can go together, in a document, and they went off and started working on it, and the joy that they had, coming up with some of the, I don't know if you've achieved any of these things yet on a JJP machine, but they're really funny, and they're really interesting, and it kind of works. The way it works right now is that we call them achievement groups, because often within a game, not always, but sometimes there is this concept where you're counting something, like how many Wonka bars you have, or maybe how many multi-balls you've achieved in a single game or across multiple games. Whatever it is, you're counting. And And if there are multiple achievements based on different numbers of things you've achieved, we call that a group, like levels, right? Like level 1 achievement, level 2. And as soon as you achieve the first level, you actually are able to see what the other levels are and what you need to achieve them.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Which is an incentive to go for them as well, I suppose.
That's right. We do have customers, users, players who say, I want the master list. They're the completionists, right? Mm-hmm. Who spent like 2 years on Skyrim finding every Easter egg. Those completionists, one of the things that they really want to do is open up the app and load up, Twilight Zone, and then see all the achievements listed out for them to hit so they know they've achieved them. We'll get close to that. There are definitely some designers don't want them all revealed for various reasons because they want it to be kind of a fun surprise. But I think that one of the things we will be releasing probably in our next software update is the total number of achievements and how many you've done, because there are a lot of them. And
people want to know, like people want to chase them, which is great. Which I think is a nice aspect of it. People like kind of get their teeth into it, and they want to be completionists. I mean, we all know how it is. I want to try every mode. I want to do everything. I want to get every achievement. And so we're working, on how to expose that information. But what I'm even more excited about the collaboration with Jersey Jack is that like we were able to work with them to have them to include achievements in the code updates in the existing games, but I can't wait for the next game that is designed now that achievements exist and it's integrated into the game code, not post release. Right. I think that's where we're really going to see a lot of the game designers kind of shine, because they can add that angle and that element to what they're putting together for the game. And we all know, it takes a while to develop, pinball machines, especially modern complex machines like the ones that Jersey Jack puts out. I mean, Guns N' Roses by itself, the light show by itself is amazing. So, so I'm excited to see what they come up with, knowing that this is an aspect of a dimension that they can add to their games.
Okay. Now, obviously, when somebody walks up to a machine, scans a code, or registers themselves as playing that machine, there's a certain amount of user data which is being uploaded or being stored in the cloud. Now, who they are, probably an email address, where they are, what games they're playing, what games they played before, what scores they've achieved, and various other bits of information. And I guess there's information about the machine itself from the operator side. How can users of your system be sure that their personal data is being held in a secure way?
It's
such an important question.
Yeah. It's because of our experience in the past, operating consumer internet companies. We are very familiar with the sensitivity around user data. So the first number one thing is you never store anything you don't have to. I mean, that is absolutely paramount. You basically start with an agreement with the user, when they register and connect. And some of it is obviously written down in the privacy statement that you could see on the app, but I also think that a lot of it is just sort of a let's call it a handshake agreement as you start. It says, this is the type of service this is, and this is the expectations you should have. And I think the expectation we are setting is, this is about the games. It's about the games. It's about the scores. It's about the modes. When you go look at, Carl D'Angelo's score for a game when he got 830 million on Guns N' Roses, and you're looking at what modes he's achieved, we consider that public information because it's a leaderboard item. Mm. Anything other than that account name and their avatar that they uploaded to share with everyone, none of that stuff is, first of all, we don't store it. The only reason we have an email address is so people can get a password reset.
Right.
And so, we don't keep any personal information. From an operator perspective, also, any of that sort of quantitative data we believe belongs to the operator. So it's not ours to use and sell and so forth. I do think that there are exceptions to that, where you're collecting anonymized information about sort of what people click on, or, how, like, for example, we track how many scores and achievements are achieved, per minute. That kind of, key performance, key product indicators that help us design our product. Mm-hmm. But personal information, the demographic stuff that you hear about, like online websites doing because they're targeting ads, is meaningless to us. It doesn't offer us value. It's funny because for all the years now that we've been connecting machines, and Jersey Jack, when they launched Guns N' Roses, it was connected from the day they launched it. There hasn't even been one conversation about what data can we have. It's always been about how do we get the player, the game information visible to everyone.
And a huge part of that also is that the trust that we have with our users, and the trust that we have with operators, and the trust that we have with Jersey Jack and other manufacturers we work with, is that, if we're going to set up this cloud platform, it needs to be bulletproof, and it needs to have everyone's best interest in place, and make sure the stuff isn't accessible, especially if we have an API that allows, streamers to reach into, or developer APIs. Part of it requires the setup so that, to Jay's point, we're not storing any data that we don't have to, but the personal identifiable data that is, truly the user's privacy is not accessible via an API. Like that, it's almost kind of 101 in terms of building these kind of cloud software platforms. And so we take that super seriously, because that's, it's the cornerstone of everything that we're building, right? And so we respect everybody's privacy, and we want to make sure that, again, that we are benefiting the community. And a part of that is by making sure the platform is secure, and making sure that, nobody's information can get out there in any way, detail, we run a business, so we're selling stuff. We take credit card numbers, things like that. None of that is all walled off away from the cloud platform, right? Like, so, we
don't even store credit card information. So
right.
We use our transaction processor for it. Another classic area of focus around privacy is location data. So the app says when you turn it on, can we use location, while the app is on? The app never sends us that information of where that user is. However, the user does get to query based on a lat long and pull down the list of venues near them that the venue records have address information, obviously. And it then organizes that based on distance. But that location data that the user has is not tracked and is not sent to us.
Right, it's all handled locally within the app.
Exactly. And that's, not only is it enforced by the stores, like the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, but it's also just good practice, because I don't want to have anything that I don't need to tempt anyone to, any kind of, miscreant behavior.
I mean, I'm Jay and Brian and the rest of the tech guys are more the tech guys, or I'm more of a business guy. Like I would just never, I would die if there was ever any sort of like breach of trust between us and our users. I mean, that's the core tenet of doing business, right? So knock on wood, right? Of course, but like that's, you show up and you want to do something like this. There's a clear way. I mean, it's 2021. This has been established in the internet space for a while now, how to do this and how to do it right. And of course, we're following that to the T.
Good, because I mean, one of the reasons for the question on security is that you have said that you're going to or planning to add a payment system to the Scorbit app to allow people to pay for their games through the app. Now, how's that going to work? And you also said that you're not going to charge for it. That seems like it's a potential area of a potential nightmare having to deal with all that. And if you're not doing it for free, it seems It seems hard to see that how that's going to work on a business case for you, other than just for expanding the use of Scorbit generally.
Well, do not underestimate our desire to expand the use of Scorbit. But yes.
No, I know. That's my next question.
Yeah, so where payments are concerned, it's really, really important. A couple things are really important to stress. First off, not everybody wants payments, right? We have I would say the majority of our operators are interested, at least on trying it. But there's a lot of operators who are very, very sensitive about digital platforms. And, so one of the things that, back to privacy and sensitivity, we will never, ever store information around the numbers of transactions that are happening or earnings in our own systems in a way that could be accessed by anyone other than those operators. So that's number one. I should start with that. As far as the actual payment transaction goes, it's not our business model. Our core competency is bringing people together who play pinball, is to get people to play more often. And part of that core competency is around reducing friction. And one of the obvious areas of friction is not everybody's carrying cash or a credit card. And so we offer this as a way to speed up and increase total numbers of plays.
My favorite story and the influence around this was there's a bar in San Francisco that had a change machine that was empty for a week and a half. And unless you were a diehard pinball player with our little stack of quarters that we rolled in, like I watched normal people walk up to the pinball machine, go to the dollar, take $1 to the change machine, like, oh, I can't get quarters. Oh well, and I won't play. Like that's like lost conversion of introducing pinball to new people, right? And if they could use their phone the way they do with Apple Pay and things like that, they would be playing again, and you wouldn't need a change machine. You wouldn't need the fact that the machines didn't have dollar acceptors, bill acceptors, by the way, is another story. That's that operator, but still,
right. Yeah, but it is important to point out that there are business models out there which take a percentage of the transaction, and that's how they make money.
Sure.
It's really important. I've learned this over the years, as a CEO, but also as a venture capitalist. It's really important that the product and the service be aligned with the revenue and how the revenue works, and that you're incented to deliver enhancements and improvements that are specific to what drives revenue, right? And when those are aligned, you get a great, relationship between the customer and the service provider. In this case, it's true that like making payments easier is aligned, but if I'm taking a percentage of the transaction, then it changes my behavior in ways that I don't think the operator wants. So what I'll do is I'll just pass through my cost transparently. So we're not going to replace, Square or Stripe or, PayPal or these, we'll hand off the actual transaction to a transaction processor, and then we will open book show that to the operator. And I realize that may seem kind of ridiculous when you have millions of dollars of revenue passing through these machines, but it's not. It just doesn't make sense for the long term for us to be doing it that way. And so what will happen is you'll have an account with Scorbit, just like you do today, and you'll be able to buy credit in the way that the operator specifies. So some of the operators are fine with there being sort of general credit that you buy and then put into machines. Other operators want it to be specific to a venue where, if you buy credit for a venue, you can't spend it in another venue. And all of these flexible, some want the dynamic pricing to change during happy hour. Some don't, all of that is built into our system. And so it's really more about sort of the operator's decision around pricing and how to, the bundling of, if $1 gets you one play and $2 gets you three plays. Well, what happens if you put in $20, right? Or $50? What is the advantage that operator is giving to the player? And so all of this stuff is just about enhancing the relationship between the player and the game and making it a better experience. And I do think that we can do that without having to take a tax along the way.
And on a purely sort of functional level, how does the if it's working with a Scorbitron, how does that actually credit up a game?
Well, we developed a product, a piece of hardware called the Scorbit Link. And
it has not rolled out yet. We showed it for the first time at Expo. This is a little bit of breaking news for you guys, for people who didn't go to Expo. But so there you go, Jay. Tell them all about Scorbit Link. It's amazing.
It's a bit of a scoop. What the device does, and there have been devices like this in the past, right? Is it sits between the coin door and the MPU, usually interposed in the harness. So it's you put it in a place that's convenient. For games like Spike games, it tends to be in the front of the cabinet, and if it's a SAM or a WPC or what have you, it would sit in the back box. But this device basically takes commands from the Scorbitron, and the Scorbitron, which is connected to our cloud, over a socket. I mean, the beauty of this is that in our lab testing, sending to the cloud and back, we're able to do a coin drop in less than 300 milliseconds. And when you compare that to the types of transactions that, Bluetooth systems have or other types of coin systems have, I think we can get that credit in the machine faster than if you put a dollar bill in, or faster than if you swiped a credit card. So that's pretty exciting stuff. The Scorbit Link also adds the ability to control all the menu buttons and start buttons and all that kind of stuff. And so when you combine that for certain games where we're not doing CPU probing and we're doing like the DMD, we're able to basically pull all of the data that the operator wants, change to tournament settings for like an entire league night, and then change it back for all the games at the same time. There's so many.
It adds another dimension to the stuff that we're working on for operators, which has been, just currently right now, an operator, if they have a machine, if they have a Scorbitron enabled machine, they can see in the app if the machine's on or off, right? And to the average person, that probably sounds, fairly simple. But when you think about an operator who's got, 20 locations and they physically need to drive to every location to check to see if the machine is working or not, being able to see if a machine is turned off, or it allows them to optimize their route, or okay, I don't need to go there this week, I can go there next week because everything's running okay, right? And this extends that to being able to utilize those menu buttons, access the remote information for all stuff remotely, so that they can be better operators. We're really, a lot of our work in the past year, it's hard to believe that we've only been out really for a year with the Scorbitron, but it's been mainly focused around players and the player experience. And year 2 for Scorbit is really going to be focused around operators and pinball machine owners and venue operators, venue owners, so that they can optimize their machines and run better businesses with Scorbit. That's our hope, at least.
Right. So, is the Scorbitron able to notify an operator if a game is malfunctioning in some way, like when a credit dot appears or something like that?
Yeah, it does. We're able to not only see that the game needs service, we can actually what we will be doing for operators is be able to conduct that test report and extract data from that test report. It won't be in our first version. Our first version will be more around, this is alerting for service. But I think that as we talk to operators, it's interesting because I thought they would want more test data. And I think that what we're finding is they're much more interested in audits, other types of audits, than the test report. And I think maybe it's because they're desensitized because they break a lot. So their assumption is there's always a service they can perform on the game. What they want to know is, are people playing it and is it earning? Right. And so
for the operators.
That's right. We do have, in the Bay Area, I know a couple operators who who want the machine learning analytics, because what they want to do is they want to do predictive maintenance, where over time the data, over a large data set. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. You are able to actually do things with the data as an operator to say, well, you know what, that Bride of Pinbot, the slings, those sling rubbers seem to wear out at this pattern, and looking at the actual data of how many times it is triggered, you're able to say, well, I'm going to need to do a rubber refresh on this game, once every 6 months. And that's the kind of thing that I think that's more of a longer term opportunity. And it's something that will probably prioritize those analytics, the very specific reports, based on the highest level of need. And as Ron said, right now is it on and is it earning, right?
Right. So Scorbit, from what you guys are telling me, could be a very interesting tool for operators to motivate people to start playing their games. There's ways you can set up incentives with the location, play 3 games, get a free beer or something like that. But I see the potential in that, but looking at history in pinball, operators usually are not marketeers. They put down they set up a machine, they put it there, and once in a while they collect the cash box, but they're not the ones actually going out trying to get people to play it and market it, so to speak. Does it need some, or do operators need some form of educations to maximize the possibilities with Scorbitron, or how do have you thought about that?
Potentially. I mean, part of it is that I think that it's and you're right. I mean, a lot of operators are just purely operating the machines, and it's up to the venues to market it. A lot of operators operate a venue, like I use the example Jack Bar, like where all the machines there are John owns. He's the bar owner and the operator, right? And same, there's other locations around that. And what we've discovered is that no one operator or no one venue is alike, right? And so what we're just trying to do is we're trying to build as much, kind of opportunity for both venue owners and operators to take advantage if they want to, and if that is what their business, kind of lines up for. If those are the business people they want to be.
That's right.
Okay. So you were talking about things that are coming up in the future. One of the other things I thought I heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that you're thinking of moving, or you're planning to move Scorbitron into the realm of video games, and effectively do the same kind of thing for them as you've done for pinball. Is that correct?
Well, we did get a question at Expo about that, and we get calls frequently from various organizations, some publicly traded organizations even, who have asked us this question a lot, and I have to be clear. I mean, what Ron said before about the community and the pinball community, look, it's our priority, and we have so much to do within the pinball universe right now. I'm like sitting next to 2 System 11s right now that I'm like, there's wires coming out of it because I want to get that product out there for the converter. And, I just feel like there's so much to do in pinball. Now, when we created the hardware, we knew that there would come a day when the arcade owner was going to say to us, hey, I've got, Galaga and Donkey Kong sitting next to here, and I really want to be able to not only grab the scores, but also be able to stream the screens. And so one of the reasons why the Scorbitron has the capability of doing real-time video encoding is partially because we were anticipating this need. And so it's the same technology. It's a different connector, literally. So it's not an expensive, years of R&D for us to convert over. When we prioritize that, I think will be when we can catch our breath around the demand around pinball, and there is a lot, and there is a personal. I mean, probably more for me even than Ron and Brian. I mean, when Scorbit started, Ron and Brian knew that I would probably become obsessed with pinball when exposed to it. but the way they did it was like they kept inviting me to play pinball with them, and I kept saying no. And finally, there was California Extreme was happening, and I knew that half of that show was video games. And so they said, "Hey, well, come with us, and you'll check out the video games, and we'll go play pinball, whatever." And it was a very thinly veiled attempt, and very successful, of getting me to cross over into pinball. But in many ways, the arcade games are a simpler problem. And I honestly, even our CPU probes are capable of handling it. I just don't want to make a commitment on timing of that. But eventually, I think to make our users happy, we will create, those connectors. I also want to point out, and I'm sure, your listeners, everybody knows this, the communities, while they overlap, they're very different too. There's different, players. There's different organizations that handle tournaments, and you've got the Twin Galaxies group, and you've got all these different folks. And we also want to respect that community's needs, which requires a lot of interaction and a lot of research.
I was just going to say research. I mean, like, so much of what we've been doing, in the years that we've been working on this is talking to operators, talking to owners, talking to designers, talking to manufacturers, really understanding and the guts of pinball. We would, once the pinball business is in a spot where it's good, then we look, how we can expand to the rest of the arcade.
Right. So if people wanted to add Scorbit to their pinball machine, how would they go about it? Do they have to buy it through the Scorbit.io website?
Correct. Yeah. So first and foremost, everybody listening should go to either the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store and download the Scorbit app and create your account and get on board there. Because whether or not you have a Scorbit device in your machine or playing on a machine with a Scorbit device, you can still use the Scorbit app. You can similar to how Pindigo and some other apps out there work. You can take a picture of your score. You can upload it there. You can keep track of your scores. You can participate in challenges. All that sort of stuff all happens in the Scorbit app. So that's the first kind of entry point. Then if you want to add Scorbitron to your machine, go to Scorbit.io. That's where you can purchase it. The way it works is that you type in the game that you want to add it to. That way we know which cables to give you and things like that. And then from there you can you sign up for your subscription and look at all the pricing. We offer discounts. We offer volume discounts. So a lot of operators, like, hey, I have 30 machines. What can you do? And we're like, of course, well, we're going to knock down the price the more that you buy. So for any operators out there, folks with a large collection, we heard you and we adjusted the pricing, because, it's great. If someone's willing to commit to buy 30 Scorbitrons, of course we want to work with them in that way. And once you do that, we ship them out to you and have instructions on how to install it. I installed it on my Data East Guns N' Roses a few, earlier this year. I told Jay, I'm like, I'm doing it myself. I want to act as a user, and I had it up and running in 15 minutes. It was very simple. So
and I just want to point out one thing about the discounts is that it's cumulative. So it's not just like if you buy 30, you get a discount. It's actually, we remember how many licenses you have, and the more licenses you have, the lower your hardware cost is, and the lower your subscription cost is. And we adjust all of it and prorate all of it when you add more. So, we had a bunch of, last March, I think we had like a group order where there was like 75 machines. People were lighting up all over London with Scorbit. Mm-hmm. And some of those guys waited, they intentionally ordered more to have more licenses because they knew we were going to be installing them over time. And they got their price down, significantly by doing that. And others who have one and then later increase more, their total advantage, it's tiered pricing, so they get a better deal. So it's all kind of magical through that front door, and we encourage people to check out the website, take a look around, but also come to our Discord channel. We have a Discord channel, and on the various forums like Tilt forums and Pinball Info, and Pinside, of course. And please come talk to us because we want to hear.
Okay, one detail from that. You mentioned that when you buy the Scorbitron, you specify which machine it's for, so you get the appropriate probes and power supply. Is that in any way locked to that machine once you install it, or can you then decide later I'm going to move it to another machine if it uses the same connections?
Yeah, you can move it around, and if you need other connections, we have an accessories store at scorbit.io/accessories, where you can buy a kit. It's like if you move your Scorbitron from a Godzilla to a Pinball Magic, you're going to need the Capcom kit, right? And so we'll send you a DMD. Well, you'll buy the DMD probe, and then you'll get the the Capcom power kit, and it's all on our website. It is a board like on a metal backplate, and we even have some users who have developed 3D printed cases for them. But obviously, if you mount it permanently, what we really want you to do when you sell that pinball machine is leave it in the pinball machine and sell it, and then contact us, and we'll give you a deal on a new one to replace it, because we want Scorbit in as many pinball machines as possible.
Yeah, we've had a couple of situations where people installed a Scorbitron, sold the machine, kept it in the machine when they sold it. The person who bought it then signed up their account and just kept on using the device without ever taking it out. And we have a whole transfer process to enable that. And it's a fun way to keep pay it forward. And it's also like, the Scorbitron device is very similar to Color DMD in that respect. Like it should be, pinball machine owners should see it as a device that they're upgrading their machine, and that ideally it lives with that machine after you sell it or move it or change it or that sort of thing. So
right, okay. I do have on my end a final question. Maybe Martin has more. Let's say I'm in a location, and that location has Scorbitron installed on their pinball machines. Is there any way that I can, as a customer, see that machine has Scorbitron in it?
Yep.
Is there?
Yep, absolutely. So if you open up the Scorbit app and look in a location, and all the locations list all the machines that are there, the machines with the Scorbitron in it have a little Scorbit logo next to it.
Okay, but is there on the machine itself like a decal or something pointing out that machine is Scorbit enabled, so that it might, if I walk by it and I'm like, oh, hey, I didn't know this was a Scorbitron or a Scorbit location. How about I play some games and add some scores to my my profile?
Well, every machine that is in the Scorbit system has a unique identifier. And what we've done is on the app and in our new tools website that is going to be released shortly, but on the app right now, you can display and print a QR code. And that QR code not only identifies it, you can print it and put it on your scorecard or your instruction cards on the apron. And not only does it identify it as a Scorbit machine, but if you scan that QR code, whether you're in the app or you don't have the app, it will automatically handle it for you. So it will navigate to the venue, to that machine, and claim the player slot. So it's sort of like a multi-function identifier and QR code. And of course we provide, vinyl clings and
yeah, we have We have stuff like that. If a venue operator wants that, we can work with them and provide that information. Like we've made static clings, we've made stickers, we've made signs, and all stuff like that. There's a venue that we worked with where we actually made 11 by 17 posters that I sent them the PDF and they printed them to put up there that shows like install the app, download. Like they kind of explained how to use it. So yeah, we're totally open to working with venue operators and owners to help market for sure.
Okay, sounds good.
Great.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Ron and Jay. I think we've learned a lot today, and a little bit of breaking news there as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thanks for having us, and we'll keep you posted as we announce more new stuff. And thanks for doing what you guys do. And you guys are a crucial part of this fandom, and so we appreciate all the reporting and all the stuff that you guys do and your passion for pinball. So thanks so much, guys.
A pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ron and Jay from Scorbit.